but like the fitting of a jacket is hard enough already, so to give them the bra, I mean, and then after, it's, I mean, yeah. Maybe they could just like put something on the nipples and have them like back and the face. You can, yeah. But like people like launch their makeup today, so it's like, when it's not that one, so usually that, yeah, so that's what I'm willing to do our own.
Hi everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Digital Fashion Week London. I almost said New York. It's our first footprint here. We've had 5 seasons in New York and we're so excited to be in London. I am just overwhelmed by the attention and the excitement that is in London around fashion and innovation. So I'm so glad that you're here. I know why you're here is because we have amazing panelists today. They are visionaries and they have incredible ideas that they're going to share with you. We curate these conversations to provide information. We want you to go home with nuggets and ideas and something that's going to change your business, change your ideas, and to influence the future of the fashion industry. So before we get started, I'm not going to talk for long. I just want to say a few thank yous. First of all, thank you so much to Unreal and Epic. You have been epic. Yeah, I'm sure you hear terrible jokes about that all the time. They have been the most generous hosts. It's been absolutely wonderful to work with Sally Ann Hatton and Liberty and Sarah. Thank you for everything that you've done, and you've just made this so smooth and easy. Our sponsors, of course, we have EPAM, Modern Mirror, 010, 061, Sensorium, Ready Player Me, Pixel Canvas, and Cult Futures. From Cult Futures, we have Astrid, who is here, and she is streaming into 3 different metaverses, or 3 different metaverse environments, because there's only one metaverse. So thank you, Astrid, and a huge thank you, I have to say, to one of the next panelists, is to my partner on this, Ashimi Sangvi from Mad Global. I was hoping when Ashimi said that she would partner with me on this, I thought, oh great, I can learn something from her. But what I've learned is that it's been impossible without her, and she has just changed everything, and I hope that I never have to work without her again. So the first panel is the future of modeling in the metaverse. We're going to take a deep dive in. We're going to look at ethics and all other really interesting conversations. So we have Ashimi Sangvi from Mad Global and Nicole Reeder from Modern Mirror.
Thank you again to everyone for being here. I see a lot of familiar faces who've supported us for a lot of other events we've done, and to thank, of course, Epic Games again for so graciously hosting us. And of course, I could not do this without having Claire asking me to partner, and I'm really hoping that we're going to bring you a lot more of these events with Digital Fashion Week, many, many seasons to come. So thank you again. I'm thrilled to introduce my guest, Nicole Reeder, the CEO of Modern Mirror. And to start off, I want Nicole to just introduce herself and give us a little bit more of a background into her journey, how she started, and Modern Mirror.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And thank you for having me as well as a guest speaker. So I really appreciate it. And yeah, so Modern Mirror. Modern Mirror, for those that don't know, is a virtual try-on company for both in-store and online experiences. The company has actually done a little bit of a shift where we're focusing more on digital human innovation with a crossover between fashion, sports, and gaming. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. But again, our core focus is, or our core product is our Avant-Garde fitting system, which is a virtual try-on system, and how we've taken that system and we've been able to use it for different purposes. So I basically got started in this over 16 years ago. So a bit about my background is I've been in the fashion industry for a very long time. Ever since I was really small and I used to be cute and adorable. I used to be a model. And then I kind of got to the gawky stage, and anyways, no longer a model, but really appreciate the industry and such. So I'm really excited to be talking about this. And basically how I founded Modern Mirror was I was a personal stylist and a shopper, and my clients didn't want to go in the fitting room. And so 16 years ago, I said, well, if I create you something that's like a hologram of you, where you can actually see how the clothing looks, fits, and wears, and you can sit there and enjoy a glass of champagne, would you do that? And they said yes. And I said, great, because we're going to be able to use it online. And they went, oh, no. We don't trust online. We're not going to put our credit cards online. So that was how long ago I started the company. But because I was a visionary, and because I wanted to go after this virtual try-on system and build it for the luxury sector, and I wanted it to be a certain way, whereas an actual replica of you and your motion and such, I was just a little bit ahead of my time. And so I was told that fashion and technology would not merge. We didn't see many women in tech 16 years ago. I was quite young. And so when I had investors and everybody tell me, no, we're not going to invest because we don't see the two worlds coming together. And what's the sustainability stuff you're talking about? That's never going to catch on. Brands don't care about that. I decided not to listen. And I started a construction company. I gave up my stilettos. And I started a construction company. I could fund Modern Mirror in order to get it to where it is today, until we could get investors. So that's a bit about my background and how we got to Modern Mirror, and now we've done some projects with some of the luxury brands out there, and now we've taken a bit of a turn, which digital modeling as well as digitizing athletes as well, and celebrities.
That is so exciting. And maybe we can also just talk a little bit more about the use cases, like some of the things that you've currently worked on. There was something very exciting that just happened last weekend, which maybe you want to share a little bit more about as well.
Yes. Can you, yeah, okay, there we go. Yes, no, it was really exciting. So we did a little bit of we did not know. I don't come from the sports industry or the entertainment industry. But we were approached by one of our partners, who's our motion capture partner, and they said, listen, Nicole, there's some athletes that want to be 3D imaged. We know you do that. We recommended you because you do the motion and the 3D imaging, and they want to use it for NFTs. And I said, okay, I don't really know much about this athlete world, but sure. I didn't realize it was a business. I said we're really focused on luxury fashion, and we're working with models and such. Well, anyways, 2 months later, I guess I can say last week my team and I were down at the Super Bowl, which is for those that don't know, it's American football, which is huge, 200 million viewers. And we were down there. It was quite an amazing experience at this event because we had NFL players come up, like 6'5", 7 foot tall NFL athletes that want to be 3D imaged and have their motion captured. They were actually throwing a football at a very high speed in the massive standing system, so that was a little scary. Making sure that they weren't breaking this. And then we also had some hip-hop artists show up, as rappers, you name it, and they're like, yeah, image us. And that's how this started. And it started because back when I found out there was a couple of athletes that wanted to be 3D imaged, I had an opportunity to talk to a Major League Baseball team that was very interested in investing in our company. And they said, well, listen, we don't have anything to do with fashion and retail, but we really love your company. And we're building, this metaverse environments, and we're investing in different type of NFT marketplaces, but we just don't really see a fit. And I said, well, I kind of see a fit. I said, what's the difference of 3D imaging a consumer and their emotion, or 3D imaging your athletes, capturing their motion, capturing their measurements as well, and providing them statistics on their motion. I said, and using that as your new collectible baseball card, as an NFT. And they looked and they went, whoa, never thought about that. I said, live in action, the whole bit. And that's where this all came from in STEM. And for us at Modern Mirror, we've always been, whether it was consumers, whether it's models, whether it's celebrities, talent, digital talent, you name it, or talent, we really believe that we don't own the data. It's not our data. We don't sell, we don't make money by selling the data. We really are about empowering people to own their data and sharing it with who they want and providing the permissions and the access level. So, took that theory over to the digital talent, and I said, well, why aren't you digitizing yourselves and monetizing yourselves and extending your careers? I've been talking to modeling agencies, we've been helping modeling agencies in this realm. Why can't we apply this to the professional athletes? Because they still have the same issue that most modeling agencies do, which is their career tenures, right? Some of them can be really short, especially if injuries come in and such. So how can they maximize themselves? And how can they maximize their revenue potential? And rather than getting into a bunch of different body scanners and such out there, why are they not investing in their own portfolio or their own selves and then licensing that out for different applications? And that's where this all started.
Exactly, and I think what's so interesting, and we can get into the ethics side of the data a little bit later, but I think what's also interesting now that we've seen the rise of so many different digital platforms, the ability to actually multiply how many times you could use your identity and have it interoperable across lots of different spaces. So you don't necessarily need to physically, let's say, be there. You can use your digital human to participate in an event or to, be part of a brand launch. And who owns that data? Can you kind of explain a little bit more about how the data ownership and the ID actually really works when you scan someone?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So again, as we say, when you get 3D image, so here's an example of what we did for the Super Bowl, right? I'm going down there, don't know any of these players, don't know any of the agents, but there's players that are interested in being 3D imaged. We're down there and they want to take a hold of that opportunity. So, talking to some of the entertainment lawyers I do know, I said, what if I just create a one-pager? Very quick, very simple, easy. You own your data. We will keep it on a protected, encrypted server. If we do not come to an agreement on a contract, because we have to do the contracts after with the agents, we delete your data. We send you a certificate of deletion for your records, and that's it. It's like it never was on our system. Now, some investors or people in the industry would go, I can't believe that. Why would you not try to figure out how to monetize that, use that? What about AI? I go, no. That's where the ethics part comes in. And I say, no, it's their data. We're just trying to get that barrier. Like, we're trying to limit the barriers for people to go and get image. And especially for professional talent, we're trying until we can get working with our agents, which can take months, right, to get over the contracts. It's about getting them into the system so that they can see what they can do, start to experiment, look at their data, and if we can't come to an agreement, then we just delete their data. There's no harm in that. So that's kind of how we got over that barrier. But it's essentially, if someone is, especially if it's a model, if it's, like we said, talent, they're paying us for a service. They're paying us for a commercial license, right? And they're getting a hold of their scan data. If they want their data, the raw data, you name it, we provide that to them. We also have a platform as well that we're actually basically integrating our API with other metaverse environments and such, so that people can easily be able to export themselves out or share their data with other platforms so they can quickly get to monetization as fast as possible. So, because that's the whole goal here, is how can you monetize yourself. And as you were saying, you can be in two places at once now. So for models, think about casting calls, thinking about how easy that is now, being able to just license yourself out and send it out. And really that can become very cost effective for the fashion brands as well, or different companies and such, if they can utilize that type of data, so across those platforms. It also can help, and we asked about a use case study, if we think about it for digital fashion brand activations, e-commerce campaigns, marketing, we did a special project with a big luxury brand that they wanted to test out models and getting their garments through digitized in a VR environment. So we did that for them. And then other applications, if you think about it for models, is fit modeling. Really, really, really hard for models, well, especially fit models, when they have to stay the same size, same shape, same measurements, collection after collection. And that's very difficult to keep that consistency. And as soon as their body changes, well, they may be out of work, right? By being 3D imaged, motion captured, collect those type of measurements, well now they can extend their career really for however long. They can go through life changes. They can have a child. They can continue to monetize themselves. And that's what we're really trying to promote, is own your data, go out and try and to monetize yourself in other ways, and really empowering people through that.
And I guess that leads me into my next question, which is really talking about the elephant in the room, which is AI and deepfakes, and how that would impact what it is you're doing. I watched a video that went viral recently that Tiesto put out. I don't know if anyone's seen that video that Tiesto put out? No. So Tiesto put out a video recently where he shows and he actually explains what he does. So first he opens the video with him actually playing at a live concert, but the video opens with the sound of Eminem actually rapping the words of the song, and then he mixes it in with his music. And that voice was actually not Eminem's voice. Tiesto put into an AI platform, an AI app, to saying, can you please give me the lyrics of if Eminem was going to rap about the future of rave? And then then obviously the AI app prints out this lyrics of what Eminem would say, and he put those lyrics into another AI app and said, can you say these words in Eminem's voice? And it's actually phenomenal how exactly real that sounded, and the audience was just, and Tiesto laughs about it, and he's like, I did this as a joke, but it was so unbelievably real that it completely had the audience enthralled. So I'm just sharing this as an example because I think AI is disrupting many different industries, and I think this idea of deep fakes and how to actually create provenance with who you are in your digital self, and how does that then become something that you can have ownership of, but also claim, I think. So if you could shed a little bit more light on what your thoughts are on that as well.
Okay, before I start talking about it, please know I'm not against AI, okay? So just so we all know, whatever I'm about to say, I do believe AI is a very powerful tool. It's how we use it though, and whose hands it gets into. And so it's the ethical point of it. So anything I say, please know I'm not a hater. I do love AI. We do use AI in certain things. I'll explain kind of how we utilize it from an ethical standpoint in a bit. But the first thing is no, AI is worrying me. It does, it's worrisome, especially with what is happening to our talent out there. I do have an issue with images of people, models, talent being scraped, or however they're collecting the data, off of the different platforms or online and such, and then creating virtual models. And those virtual models are being used and created because it's cheaper, right? It's inexpensive, but what is that happening to our talent? What is happening to our people? And why are there only a handful of people making money where we should be really spreading the wealth to our talent? That's where I have the issue. And that's where we need to get a hold of this. I think AI can be, if we can track it, if we can help protect people's images, or at least they can be compensated in some way of that, then I think it's a very powerful tool. But with 2D especially, it's gone quite rampant. We're hearing a lot of different lawsuits and stuff, like we said about music and such, and it's a matter of time until they get into 3D, and they have already. There's 3D where they're capturing shapes now. It's going to get scary when now it becomes 3D and photorealistic. That's why I'm telling the athletes we're working with, I'm telling the models we're working with, I don't care who you go to get 3D imaged. Go out there and start getting your data. Get control of it, start licensing it, get a plan with your agents, and we've got to sort out too how we can tag this data, whether it's through the blockchain, tracking it, you name it, with AI companies to make sure that we're doing this, that they're doing this in an ethical way as well, and that people are being monetized in certain ways. So that is what is key. I'm not against AI, but it's the way we use it. As an example, if a model comes through, we actually say to them on any of our forms or documentations or contracts, do you accept, and even consumers, do you accept the terms? Are you okay with being a part of any of our AI applications? Yes or no, very clear. I do believe as a company, and all of us as companies, that anything we're doing with AI or bond scanning or data ownership, we have a responsibility to educate the consumers, or consumers, our talent, creatives, you name it, not hide it in terms and conditions, but be up front and start educating people on their data and what that means to own it. One of the things is, we do with the digital talent is we say, listen, we'll give you your data sets. You guys you license them out, you do what you want with, and for consumers as well, they can have their data if they request it. But what I say is when you get your data and it leaves our hands, now the risk is on you. It's not on us anymore. So kind of buyer beware, right? Where are you putting it? How it's getting out there, and that others are using it responsibly. And I do think us as a company has an obligation to, when we hand over that data, to also provide them with the risk, not to scare, but just to educate in that standpoint. But with AI, I think AI is great if done ethically and for things like enhancements, or like if you want to add eyelashes or hair to, your digital self and certain programs. I think there's fantastic, powerful tools for that. It's just how we go about it and where we're collecting that data from and what that process is. So I'm in support of it. And I know we've seen too, I know this is not quite AI, but when we look at it too, we saw CGI models come out, right? And there's been some amazing CGI models that we've seen. But then I look and I go, why can't our models, why can't our talent, going back to monetizing themselves, why can't they be out monetizing themselves? Why do we have virtual models making $8,000 a post? It's cute, it's fun, but why do we have this when we have models that aren't being fed, right? Or doing shoots that aren't being paid? What is wrong with that? And I don't understand how a digital model, or a virtual model, sorry, that's not real or based off anybody, has a real boyfriend, and I can't even get one. So that's a little crazy, like, to be honest. I look and I go, what's wrong with this picture? But no, going back to it, that's what's really kind of empowered us is let's get our talent out there, making money, and let's spreading the wealth.
So I guess that leads me to my final question, which is, what is the future of Modern Mirror? We're an amazing audience here today. We would love to have any alpha that you can share of what the future plans are, any projects that you're working on, anything that you'd like to share.
Well, there's quite a bit that we're working on. One thing at Modern Mirror that we are really about is creating a seamless experience. So it's all about taking our technology stack and how can we utilize it in multiple different ways. So basically with our system, what we say is it's one system, one scan, 1 second, and limitless opportunities of what you can do, right, once you've been 3D imaged. So right now, our focus is, yes, it's still with the virtual try-on and those sorts of pieces, but really while the time is now, we're out there educating, like we said, and I've mentioned probably 100 times now, but we've got some very big projects happening with some very well-known athletes out there. They're coming by not just a few at a time. We're having hundreds of come to us saying, we want this. Everything from golfers, NBA stars, NFL, you name it. It is, that interest is there, as well as some of the modeling agencies. But let's just say this, I am not going to be satisfied, and my team knows this, until I have a haptic hologram of somebody in the room that has been 3D imaged, virtually trying on the collection in front of me. So until that happens, I'm not going to stop innovation.
Amazing. We're going to open it up for a few questions. If anyone would like to ask Nicole, we can pass the mic around. Anyone?
What was your experience finding a technical partner? And again, I'm assuming that you're not the technical person in it.
That's correct. Yes, I'm not technical, so let's not ask me technical questions. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. I'll do my best. So, when you mean a partner, do you mean technology or do you mean our technical team?
Yeah, like a CTO.
Okay, well I love that question. My CTO has been with me for 13 years. Our CTO is a world-renowned specialist and scientist in 3D body imaging from Switzerland. He started the 3D body imaging conference over 10, 11 years ago. No, more than that, 14 years ago, I believe. And when I started this, I had heck, I didn't even know how to use a DVD player, like honestly. And it was that long ago, I remember I had a DVD player. Didn't even know how to use it, but what I knew is the experience I wanted to build and what I wanted the customer journey to be. So I did a ton of research. I figured out the different systems that were on the marketplace. This was before Clo came out, so those that know about Clo. So I think I was looking in Optitex at that time, because they've been around since I think 86, 87. Anyways, looking at all the different systems that were out there and how to build this system the way that I wanted it to be utilized, including haptic holograms, so looking into that too. And anyways, I heard about this conference, and I looked at his resume, and he seemed to be one of the world-renowned scientists. And I went to him and I said, I would like to go to your conference and I'd like to schedule some time with you after. I sat down with him, had a 20-page proposal of exactly how I wanted to build the system. Let's just say the day after his conference, he canceled all those meetings for me. And he kept getting up, and he's a very polite Swiss man, and he gets up and he leaves, and I'll be right back. And what I didn't realize was canceling all his appointments, and he sat down and he goes, okay, you didn't go to tech university, you are a college dropout, you don't know anything about this industry, but you know fashion and the experience that you want. How'd you figure this out? And I said, Google? that was my answer, Google. I just looked it up. And he said, you understand what I have always wanted to build. He says, you get the vision. We're not quite there yet, but I see where we're going, and you've got that vision. So he says, I said, well, you do a feasibility study on what I've done. His feasibility study came back, and he says, to a T, the different platforms you wanted are exactly what I would have told you to go after and integrate. 2 years after that, I went to him and I said, you keep doing this consulting work for me. And I said, there's no one out there like you in this space. And he says, yeah, you're right, at that time. And I said, I'd love for you to be my CTO. And he says, because you have the same vision that I had for this industry. Actually, your vision's bigger, because I'm really scared of those holograms. He goes, I can't do that. So go find the world's best in holograms, which we went and did at MIT. He said, I want to be a part of this journey. And the amazing part was when we did our first kind of, in 2016, we were here in London with our team. It was 2016, 2017. And we were showcasing how the different systems would integrate together, and we did this whole massive event. And Claire will tell you that if I put on an event at our office, it turns into a party. But anyways, it turned into an awesome event, and he looked at me and said, I got offered a job, six-figure job as a CTO for a big company. And I said, I've lost him. Right, I've lost him. Because I couldn't. Technology, geez, why can't you guys get it together? Why can't we get these investors on board fast enough? And he looked at me and said, I didn't take the job. He says, because I only want to work for kind people. I only want to work with big visionaries. And he says, and you've been at this, and you have always been putting myself and my family first. And you have he says, you quit everything you needed to do and start a construction company to fund this, because I am staying with you and I'm going to back you the whole way through. That's how I found my partner. So, sorry, it's a long story, but.
It's a beautiful one.
Any other questions?
Yeah, have you... Yeah, no worries, Thank you. Hi, really good story. Do you have any use cases with applications with the gaming industry? I mean, we're here at Epic Games today. Do you work with the gaming industry at all? And if not, what might that look like?
Oh, I'm scared to say the name out loud because I might get thrown out of the building. We are just starting to bridge that, and that is with a, oh man, I can't believe I'm about to say this. I think this is not good, bad karma. But we are working with Unity. Sorry, I know I said it out loud, don't hate me. But just so we all know, we do use Epic as our rendering system, so I'd just like to say that, and Unity does support that, so I'd just like to mention. But so we are starting to work with them. We've also got some platforms as well, some metaverse environments that are really cool, like Lockerverse. You guys should go check it out. It's a really awesome platform that these guys have created, where it's an all-in-one platform where you can do the NFT, the Discord, your fan base, the whole bit, sell merchandise, all in one system. And I went, oh my goodness, where was this when we were doing our first NFT? I did one and I never want to do one again. Because there was a lot of work that went into it. And it was a special project we did, so it was worth it. But these guys have made it super simple. So it's those type of platforms as well that we're working with and integrating our systems with. But we're just starting to with the gaming. And I'm, like I said, sorry I said Unity, but yes, those are, but happy to work with Unreal if they would love to work with us.
Thank
And
you.
anyone else.
Great, I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Anyone else?
I mean, I have one more if I if I can do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you mentioned that it was quite challenging to find investors 13 years ago. Would you say that the climate has changed now for?
Oh, it absolutely has changed. It has. It's an amazing time now to be raising capital. But I do have to say, women are still underfunded in tech as well. Only 2% of us got funded last year. Got an issue with that. So we have to have a serious talk with still VCs and venture firms and such. But no, there's a lot more opportunities. But back then, they thought I was, before it was cool to be a unicorn, they thought I was a unicorn. They thought I was crazy and out of my freaking mind when I said this is what I want to do. And this is, these two industries are going to merge. And they went, yeah, you're lucky if this e-commerce thing takes off. And you need an investor with deep pockets. But yeah, back then it was difficult. And then, as I said, we just kept funding the company, and then what I did is I found an angel investor who was amazing. He funded it, so it's now turned into kind of a super angel, if anything. And it's been, we've had a lot of interest. We're going into a big Series A, but the wonderful thing is we've been able to self-fund the company this long, and now we're just getting way too big. We're now going into a big Series A, which is really exciting for us. But we managed to keep it going, even when people thought we were crazy. So, but back then it was difficult.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nicole. I mean, you're truly so inspiring, and I hope everyone here also enjoyed Nicole's story and everything that they're doing at Modern Mirror. I'm going to hand it over back to Claire again to introduce the next panels.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's always great to start with ethical conversations. So we're going to take just a couple of minutes break. It's 4 panels, and we don't want you to get exhausted sitting. So I want to invite you to engage with some of the activations that we have today. Right here we have Placebo, and they have an amazing VR activation that they can share with you. There's a couple of headsets in there. I'm going to let Gal tell you all about it when he's in the room. He's actually doing a presentation on this tomorrow. The mirrors that we have on the wall are from one of our sponsors, 010, and they chose 5 designers from Digital Fashion Week, and they created their garments. We have some of them on the runway tomorrow as well, so if you're coming back, you can see them on the runway and on yourself at the same time. So please just scan the QR code on the mirror and try everything on yourself, on your friends. And if you post everything, if you could please tag Digital Fashion Week, NYC, mad.global, and also Unreal Engine as well. So if you could tag as many people and yourself and everything, that really helps. We have some other really exciting things from Unreal as well. We have the MetaHumans here, and we have more tomorrow. We have the stage over there where we have the metaverse. It's built for us by Pixel Canvas, so you can be in the metaverse over there. So let's just take a few minutes break before the next panel so we can keep our minds fresh and keep questions coming. Thank you.
I've had this for a while and I'm doing some and I'm like, I don't even know what's going on there. So I know it's constantly
working in the industry.
it's so confusing.
Hello, Sarah. Yeah, nice to see you.
There was a couple shoots here earlier. So, it's all about the
Feel free to have a joy. Listen to that. None of these guys are back on stage.
We are live here.
Yeah, so this is our camera next whether it's a fantastical environment or a real environment, in a different time in our history, or somewhere that was hard to access. So like Mandalorian, House of Dragons, 1899 or some of the shows we supported these over there with 010. So there's the so they're layering our laps together. So if you guys want to try, you can download it. I'm not updating. Oh, it's like another time. Oh my god. Yeah, so I think that's You could do a walk across the stage
Oh look!
You could have someone stationed there. Yeah.
Wait, is this? Oh, it's live.
Oh, that makes me feel so much better. I mean, I've got Hi, welcome.
Yeah, we're just showcasing our VFX volume here. For filmmakers who are trying to combine the CG environment and real talent to awesome guys together and that's a resulting camera. It's amazing. Usually the background is the same way you're going, so it makes sense.
I'll try to do
Well, guys, if you guys have any questions, let me know. This is, feel free to get on stage and come take some photos. Or just showcasing our in-camera VFX.
Are you looking for a plug socket as well? Me too. I'm not quite sure. I couldn't get into it. Should I just live? I'm having this.
So this is our little
Make sure I don't break anything.
Yeah, don't unplug those. I know it's managed, so I need to say that. I'm just trying to like, I think people think I do more marketing, but I don't. I'm just like interested.
From an AI background, but we involved in fashion I paid her to very good now. From
I'm like doing these events, and I'm like, digital fashion is such a niche space, but it is becoming so comprehensive in and of itself. So what is your 5-year predictions now?
Some stuff that one can do very, very quickly actually. So tell me more about multi-coin.
Yeah, so one of the OG crypto investment firms has been keeping around when I was like trying. Oh, so you're familiar with the firm?
No, but I kind of.
Yeah, and I. We have a liquid fund and an illiquid fund, so we're on a hedge fund and a venture capital fund. We're on our third fund within the VC vehicle, which was we just announced last year, and it's around 430 million. And then we're $1 billion plus on the hedge fund side, which is really great to have both vehicles. There's only 6 of us on the investment team, and we manage both. And then I'm the only one that does consumer crypto entirely, and then right now, particularly focused on digital fashion, which is really weeks. So it was very cool. So, sorry, go ahead.
No. One of the stuff you're interested in.
I would. The problem is that digital fashion is working very top down. So we're seeing a lot of the excitement in the building happening around the brands, frankly, right now. Like the drop, the fabricated, consumer crypto, but digital fashion right now. And I'm saying it's moving very top down, which I think is helpful because once we get one side, yeah. So that's what I was explaining. It's so much excitement happening in the brand. I would love to invest at the infrastructure level, obviously, but nothing's been built yet, like frankly. And so I'm kind of just watching the trickle down effect and hoping to follow it at every level. But like what excites me particularly is the future of e-commerce, for example. I think we're kind of moving back towards peer-to-peer commerce cycle, basically. The idea that as we enable social media with commerce, we can start moving towards, instead of buying from large platforms or whatever else, to buying from people that you know. Crypto enables that and tokenization, and then obviously crypto-based as well. So that's one space I'm really excited about. And then otherwise, still code creation. I think that's the best way to bridge Web2 and Web3 right now is taking traditional Web2 brands and having them work with. So it's nice to co-creation platforms and then he brings better products on and the agency was still trying to find so we focus as a multi-brand a lot of identity. I haven't started to imagine how traffic into fashion right now, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But I think it's one interesting play on identity fashion and then layer one, like on one's generally. So that's make sure so they're trying to create a brand economy, and the idea is that like having a wallet and an address represent your identity, they're having a smart contract address, and you can attach all this metadata from photos, links, whatever it might be, and it offers and it looks more like a social media profile that can better represent your identity on the blockchain. Like people from Amsterdam, there's people also it's like everybody's so it's like as much but if it works with the wrong base then it's extrapolating. I'm based in New York, that was this time and I'm in I grew up there. Not a bad place to be though. And yourselves?
I'm based in London.
I mean, also, my sister lives here. So.
And what sort of check amounts do you
All sizes actually work in general. Due to the state of the industry itself, but we do any size really.
And are you guys interested in looking at a white space
Nice, okay. Everybody. I think we had a quick change of panel, by the way. So, we're going to go down as intros because Gary unfortunately couldn't make it. So I will start with Kadeen. If you just introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you do.
Gary's not here.
He's not.
Hi everyone, I'm Kadeen James. I'm the founder of the Immersive Archive. It's great to be here today. Congratulations to Claire and Ashimi and Sally for bringing this together. You've done a wonderful job and I'm delighted to be a part of it.
Hi everyone, I'm Isabella Sainty. I'm the head of brand at Drop, which is a platform for digital fashion. We have just launched, so it's great to be here and I'll pass it over.
I'm the one that stole Gary's place, so thank you for having me. very last minute. I'm Alex Van Gestel. I'm here from EPAM. EPAM's a digital transformation business. We have engineers all over the world making the scaffolding of many of the great things you see today. My background's marketing, and delighted to be here today.
Thanks, Alex. Got my own, I'm the moderator, got my own one. And I'm James Joseph. I founded Cyber Magazine. We are a futurist magazine, which is a print magazine, but we are augmented reality enabled. So you scan the pages, they come to life in 3D. We've done covers for Grime, Cyberpunk 2077, Clever and Sega, Artifact, and we're trying to merge physical and digital in this modern world of media. So yeah, I'm going to jump straight into it. I mean, a few of my questions are aimed at Gary, so I'm going to skip a couple of those. But I think, for me, as a first question, I obviously have a strong vision about augmented reality. So I wanted to ask all of you, do you feel the future of fashion is augmented digitally in our daily lives? Or do you feel that this is going to move completely virtual in metaverses? And how soon do you expect that shift?
I've got the mic, so that means me. I think augmented reality is kind of part of our daily lives already. We're all very sort of user-friendly with it. We saw sort of doggy faces on Instagram, unfortunately, a lot. So we all know how it works. I think that means that there's less of a sort of friction point with like VR headsets that sort of full immersion requires. So I think in that sense, augmented reality is probably inevitable, if not already happening. We have 0 to 10 mirrors here today. So I think AR is probably what we're going to see sooner rather than later. The only thing that has to happen is more of a sociological shift, so that it becomes everyday and normal for the everyday fashion consumer. I think Jeff Bezos had this point talking, when he was stepping back from CEO, he said to all of his old employees, we've done the most amazing, incredible things that are now boring, and that's my greatest achievement. Because like we had sort of next day delivery, we've had Alexis in everyone's home, and now we're bored. And that's the greatest compliment. So I think that's what we need for AR, that it becomes boring, and then we know, like, we're there. And I think we're a few generations away from it being boring.
Awesome.
Brilliant, Isabel, and I echo those sentiments. I was very fortunate when I was at Yahoo to work with the streetwear designer Charlie Cohen and the creative fashion technologist Tamara Inglis to produce an augmented reality wearable for the immersive fashion experience called the Electric City, where we dress metahumans and ready-playing avatars in Charlie's collection, which we also dropped in store at Selfridges. That experience was also powered by an augmented reality wearable called the Collider Drip. And I also got to work with the incredible Gary James McQueen, who isn't here today, sadly, on creating an augmented reality crown for the Queen's Jubilee. I'm really excited about the Vogue and Snapchat exhibition that's going to be taking place. Really thinking about the next layer for augmented reality, where we can maybe feel it on our real bodies, but also in the virtual worlds as well. So I think the technology will continue to evolve. I think the designers of the future are going to push it forwards, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I think what's interesting, especially everyone in the room today, is kind of digital first creativity that's happening. I think we used to go, how do we make something in real world as good in the digital space? And I think now people are in the real world going, how can we get something as good as in the digital space, right? So if you look at the catwalk over here, Artifact, which is part of Nike, it's like a $200 million business now, it's real. And as it scales, I think that's where products are going to be, that's where they're going to get sold. There's a business case that's now forming, so that people are actually going to invest much more into design for digital. And obviously, the more you can experience it, the deeper the immersive experience, the more brands are going to really focus on that first. Who knows, this will probably overtake the normal fashion week at some point in the next couple of years, really.
I hope so. I can turn my microphone. I hope so. And I personally think AR is an evolutionary step, I personally think, for where we're going. Because if you think about it from I'm obviously a futurist at heart, and I think if you think about it from like 100-year, 1,000-year human evolution, like we're not going to look like this in 1,000 years' time. whether we're doing mind uploading, whether we're floating balls of consciousness, whatever, it feels like AR has to be that evolutionary step to have digital content all the way around us simultaneously at the same view, and that's kind of where we're going. But it's interesting to me that, I was just learning a bit about you, and I think, like, you were a marketing director at Bacardi previously, and we've seen kind of brands like Absolute have done a collaboration with IVF recently, which was awesome. I love that, and it was really powerful. And how do you feel that like Titan traditional brands like that, how can they preserve their brand in Web3, and how can they do it in an inclusive way? Do you think?
Yes, it's a good question. I think brand equity and how you transmit brand equity from, I guess, 100 years of building a brand like Bacardi, from the fields of Cuba to today, and now you're kind of out into the virtual world, right? And I think collaboration is key. I think having the right kinds of partners, the right kinds of influencers. I think influencers, obviously, and creative directors are a double-edged sword. So back in the day with Bacardi, we had a lot of different collabs, but it is a double-edged sword. Obviously, one of my clients is Adidas. We see the problems they've now got with the Yeezy brand because of Kanye. At the same time, we see Pharrell taking over Louis Vuitton menswear, and so one thing is a massive hype, and another thing is you've got a massive hype, it can also fall down very quickly in the wrong hands. So I think collaboration is key, but making sure that you're not betting the entire brand equity onto borrowed interest, I would say.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's a really good point you made, and it just made me think, which is, we saw that KidSuper did an LV collection recently, and a colleague of mine was chatting, and we were saying that, potentially this is going to be the first time that we're not going to have like a creative director at a big house like that. And maybe we'll have multiple creative directors for different collections, and it'll also maybe it will like bump start the creator economy. And then of course they put Pharrell in place, which is very cool.
Yeah.
So you didn't go that way. But I'd be interested to talk to you three about in Web3 and as we move forwards in digital, do you feel like with the creator economy growing and brands like Artifact really championing the creator economy, are we going to see a difference with the creator director? Are we going to see less of a top-down structure, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, my view is that the pace is just increasing, and the hunger for innovation is just going to multiply, every season, every quarter. So I think the need to bring in new talent and digital-first talent is going to be a force multiplier for the brands that really understand it and get it right.
Yeah, and when it comes to for some context of Drop, where it is a digital fashion platform that brings on different designers where they can sell their wares on our platform. And I think what's exciting for creators at this time is you get the opportunity to build your whole world without really that much upfront cost. I mean, Instagram allowed that for designers of today, where people who aren't in the major cities are now creating brands, which is so exciting. But you still have supply chain costs, production, selling, having to be at fashion weeks, and that is just financially prohibitive. But now, with this creator economy, we're going to get really big names popping up everywhere, which I know is preaching to the conversion. We all know that's what's exciting about digital fashion. But I think we're going to have people's voices, which are just so different because they're going to be happening in their own microcosm, and then coming into these big brands for collaborations with just a totally different perspective. So yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah, I echo everything that Alex and Isabella have just said so eloquently, and I'm thinking a lot about the opportunities for brands to digitise their collection, the next layer of funding that's going to bring to their businesses, and equally for the creators and the designers of the future that are designing using the technology of our time and looking at new ways that we can innovate together to produce fashion experiences both physically and virtually inside virtual worlds and in the physical.
Actually, one more point on that. I was speaking to the ex-CEO of Webit, and we were talking about the sort of route in as a creative. And she just said, well, it's really go Central Martin's graduate top of the class, and then you can make it work from the big houses. And I mean, we know that's not the rule across the board, but that's changed so much, and it's really exciting, and I'm glad that sort of all this garbage in place.
You say that, it's interesting because I feel like I'm very on board with that, but it's I feel like it isn't changing that dramatically that quickly, and I'd like it to be better. And actually, I'm going to jump straight back to it because it links, which is, so with Drop, Danny put out a white paper, and that white paper was about a platform, and it was about empowering, exactly what he's talking about, giving designers more of the pie, instead of other platforms that maybe take more of a lion's share, etc. But recently, you've actually evolved kind of more to a brand model as well. I'm not sure if that's known. I'm not sure if I was allowed to say that. Okay. But yeah, okay. So why is that? What's the pivot and vision there?
Yeah, so the white paper, for those who didn't read it, we are a digital fashion platform. We're also going to have a virtual wardrobe, which is more of a sort of luxury experience as opposed to just your wallet to keep the digital assets. And then also there'll be the opportunity for resale and renting your digital garments. What we've decided to do, as you said, is introduce our own brand, kind of like the Moncler Genius model, where we might collaborate with artists, because we think that even though the digital artists are amazing and varied, there hasn't really been a crypto-native digital fashion catered for. So we're going to introduce generative fashion design, essentially. So the code is the couture. Interesting code means the value of the garment is exciting. So it's a sort of new way of purchasing as well. When you go to mint a garment, you get a one-off because it's been generated in the moment you purchased. And so we thought we'd kind of just show an example of that to start with. Also build our platform as a brand alongside a real brand like the Moncler Genius model to sort of validate what we're doing. And it's also exciting for us. We get to sort of sit in the creator's shoes for a little bit so we understand who's coming onto our platform.
Amazing. I love the Moncler Genius model.
It's epic. So many people try to copy it and fail, so I just hope we're not that.
So to everyone, I mean, the title of this talk has the word couture in it somewhere. It's been taken out, but there we go, which it was there originally. But I just thought, like, can digital fashion ever be couture? The mass digital fashion model leads to ready-to-wear, really. Is there a future for completely bespoke individual digital garments, do you think?
Without doubt, I think everybody knows that in this room. It's happening now, and I think everything that designers are producing physically, that brands are producing physically, will exist in the digital space, whether that be through an augmented reality wearable, couture experience, or a fashion experience that you can wear inside your avatar in the metaverse. I also wanted to talk a bit about interoperability, and I think that's really lacking at the moment, and there needs to be more conversation around how we tackle that. I love what you say, Isabella, about the opportunity for digital fashion to unleash this new way to maybe think about how we wear fashion, but equally thinking about how it can be more sustainable. So couture experience in the future could also enable an opportunity to allow us not to damage the planet as much as we are. But those are, my kind of initial thoughts. But I think the interoperability, the wallet experience, and then the enabling of that around your digital closet and how you take that across multiple spaces and virtual worlds is something that we need to unlock and give more thought to.
Yeah, I think in a way, digital fashion is kind of maybe closer to couture than ready-to-wear. And the reason being, there isn't maybe a focus on wearability of couture. It's very collectible, it's one-off, and you can experience the same thing with digital fashion. And I'd say also the designs, aesthetically, are maybe more otherworldly in couture, and that's what we're seeing with digital fashion as well. So that sort of idea of collecting and creating a collection in your wardrobe, which is a bit more precious, I like to think could be more native to digital fashion, which is exciting in itself.
I think from my perspective, it's the opportunity, again, from going from a digital first back into the real world. So if you can somehow be involved in the creation or the customization of fashion. So if I've got a Burberry trench coat, then I can make it that much more special for me, and personalize it, and then that can be printed into the real world, and I can wear it physically. And then I've got a twin of that, but kind of something that I can kind of keep that has value and has authenticity for one of these seller board. I think that's where it kind of gets interesting, where it's a two-way conversation between product and virtual product.
I think, like, I'm gonna move slightly on, but in terms of preserving the brand identity, I'm not going to make this a legal talk, promise, but it is important to talk about because I feel like a lot of people miss this a lot of the time. But you know, for brands and designers, what do you feel is important to protect and cement the brand from the very beginning? I don't know who's most aligned with this. Maybe Alex might be, given your background, but yeah.
Yeah, I think really understanding who you're for, right? Understanding, you know, who you're for in the digital world, who you're for in the real world, and who your audience is. I think we have a really sharp view on your community and who you're serving, both in retail stores or whether it's in-game experience, and having a really tight view on how your brand equity plays consistently across all of the different platforms on and off. I think that's key. But also, I think, you know, allowing for experimentation, allowing for much more involvement, allowing for that community to contribute to the brand and have a voice in terms of how that brand evolves. I think that's what's exciting right now, which we've never had, you know, in the last century.
Legal makes me think of Metaverse.
Well, that's the next question. You got my follow-up question before I managed to ask it.
Sorry.
Go, shoot.
Which I think is, I mean, it's complicated because we all kind of maybe thinking that courts would decide to fall on the side of the artist, right? Usually with these things, but they back Hermes. No one was following the court case. Hermes is one, and I think it kind of shows that it's not necessarily a bad thing that Hermes won that court case. And the reason I think that is because big brands are now buying into, and they have to buy that IP in the digital space, which kind of just validates the whole digital fashion space, that you have to be a financial player in the game, involved, not just doing a sort of one-off collection, but you have to compete here, you put your name, write it in your own blood. And so I think it shows an exciting direction, digital fashion. And it also means that we'll have to lawyer up, but that's not what I'll
Yeah, I think these are really good points, and I'm really glad that you brought this up, James. I think the Birkin bag is a really good example. I also think that brands have an opportunity to protect their IP in these virtual worlds and spaces, and I'm sure that there'll be many legal teams considering that at the moment as we move forward in these virtual worlds and spaces. So I think the lawyers will be making big decisions at some of the big brands that we all know and love, and I'm sure that the next layer of digital in terms of wallets and how we access those digital goods and garments and tracking those garments and the traceability is also going to open up new opportunities, I think, in terms of IP, in terms of how we collect fashion, how we experience it, and how we own it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I want to add a little bit to it because I probably have quite a bit. I have a little bit of experience in this because of my previous businesses, and I've been associated with the Electronic Frontier Foundation before as well. So it's interesting to me because the Meta Birkins thing, I found very interesting that people were confused about it. Like, I was very cemented that they were always going to win. Because I love his artwork and I think it was fantastic. And I hope I wanted to succeed, right? But you took their name and their image, like, it's a clear-cut case of trademark infringement. And for those of you who will know, some of you who won't, like trademarks, you trademark in certain classes, and if you're in that class and in that region, it's an infringement. And I agree that I think it was very good that it fell that way. And also I think it was a very good judgment because the penalty was $130,000, which was far smaller than the amount of money that he made, which I think was very fair in a way that this is a very new case. And it didn't protect the artist, but it kind of protected the artist. I mean, they could have slapped like 1.5 million or whatever the actual overall sales of the thing was on it. So I think it was actually very good, but I think people need to be careful because I speak to a couple of founders who go, oh yeah, but it's crypto. Oh yeah, it's Web3. Like, no, like we need to be very careful. And I think when you start your brands in this space, you need to make sure that you are, and you need to go through the right channels, through trademark, and in those territories that you are going to be in. And I wish that we had Omni somewhere, but there's so many issues, and I think to protect it from the beginning, make sure you have all your ducks in a row, and then go out there is one of the most important things you can do. So moving, so moving on. I think I think as well, I'd quite like to ask about creator economy in terms of what advice would you give to brands and designers, empowering those around them to build and create for their brand. And in a sense, I mean that it seems scary to some that when you empower a community to start designing and building for you, you can't necessarily control it. And I just wonder if you have any advice on that.
I think because we sort of lose the tactility to digital fashion, the thing that we can take from normal physical fashion and do better is world building. And if that means involving our community in a more sort of giving them more freedoms, I think that's the sort of the right step forward. So when it comes to sort of creating shows, if each person who's wearing the item happens, virtually wearing the item, happens to be your customer, I just think that's strengthening your brand on a sort of in a bigger sense, and sort of a personal relationship with your customers means we're going to have them forever. So I think my sort of advice to anyone starting a brand would be create a world, create an identity, and make sure that people want to live in it and keep talking to you.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back a little bit to opening up the aperture. If you're a brand these days, you need to open up the aperture. And luxury brands in particular are very tightly controlled, right? I think where you see certain luxury brands like Gucci saying, actually, you know, we're going to open up the aperture. We're going to open up our brands in collaboration with sportswear or with other young designers, or even how they treat social media in terms of their openness. I think that's a path to the future. I think that is what's going to happen more. I think on the high street, when you look at brands like Uniqlo, in terms of what they're doing with, you know, kind of little capsule collections and, you know, bringing excitement and dynamism to the high street, you know, through bringing luxury down into the store, I think is really interesting. I think it makes it, you know, more accessible, more interesting. You know, it gets younger people involved. So I think that, you know, that's where it's going to go, rather than kind of tight control, which is kind of the traditional you know, story of Hermes, I guess.
You want to add anything?
Yeah, I did actually, James, thank you. I was thinking about sort of the young designers that I'm working with within the Immersive Kind, and thinking about ways that we're supporting them to digitise their collection, making sure that those relationships are fair, making sure that the designers are rewarded for the work that they do, and making sure that they own the asset and that they also have a stake in their brand, being able to take it forwards. And I think that through collaboration and enabling and fostering these opportunities for the designers of the future and funding, you know, their brands is also something that, you know, we're trying to do much more of. I'm also thinking about ways that big brands can support the next designers of the future and fund programs to support those designers so that they have the digital skills, you know, to enable their brands in the next layer of the internet. So I think, yeah, there's lots of thinking to do about that.
I mean, Epic Games, we're in their building, they're doing that very thing. But yeah, I think it's interesting. You were also saying about you kind of have like the Louis Vuitton model where they, you know, they've gone into esports, they've done lots of stuff with League of Legends, which is very cool. But at the same time, you have say like Artifact, who are running. It's still that kind of their ownership strategy is completely different, right? So I'm obviously much more for the Artifact model. I think it's incredible to have that ownership of the brand instead of being told to consume. But how do you feel like going forward? How does ownership change with digital fashion compared to the traditional fashion model that we're used to?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I think what's interesting is that the technology platforms, you know, part of which we're involved in at eFound, you know, things like Travis Scott. If everyone experienced that a couple of years ago with Epic Games, it was an amazing experience. You go, why can't all real concerts be that good, right? So I think from my perspective, marketplaces, brands will become marketplaces, and they will need to invite in new ideas, new creativity, new designers, in order to feed, you know, the overall brand, I feel. And so I think, you know, platforms like Decentraland and so forth, when they have fashion shows, they will, I think, need to lean on those brands and lean on those brands to open up and to begin to invite in more creativity that then I think will inform their creativity, I believe. So it's community first, digital first.
Yeah, I think it also depends who you're speaking to, because if the brands are speaking to their existing client base and the client base has never heard of Web3 fashion, then you're going to have a sort of user problem crossing over into that new realm. But if, for example, Louis Vuitton is trying to access the community who are already purchasing digital fashion, then they have to come to the creators who are already catering to them and understand the community, they know what this goal is. So I think it sort of depends who you're trying to access, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's about knowing your audience and also thinking about the next generation that are going to be buying your products in those virtual worlds and spaces, and how you're going to be selling to the next generation and future audiences at scale through virtual worlds and spaces and also in retail stores.
Thanks. So my final question is a bit thin, so I'm actually going to say that I don't want any hyperbole in this question, in the answer, sorry. Obviously as a futurist, I'm always thinking 100 years ahead, 50 years ahead. Where do you all see digital fashion in 2053? No hyperbole. Go.
Great. What I'd like to see is the use case is boring and quotidian. We're all like, we all do it without even thinking about it.
I like this idea of earlier. It's right.
I just want it to be really every day, but then aesthetically, I want us to never get bored. So I just hope that means we're having more and more talent coming in with new ideas. Like, the fashion industry has not run out of ideas, and we should be the same. And by we have digital fashion. So that's what I'm hoping. New ideas, but we're all bored of the format because we all know how to use it. That's what I'm hoping for.
50 years from now, I don't know. 30 years from now. I don't know. For me, I don't think the digital word will exist, right? It doesn't really exist so much anymore. But I'd like creativity overall to be an industry, and fashion being a part of it, art being a part of it, music being a part of it, self-expression being part of it. Doing the right thing for the planet being part of it. So I think there is a kind of, this kind of creative class, this constantly innovative industry thing of which fashion is a part, but it's not the entire thing, because it's so much more about self-expression and meaning to the individual than it is to the ultra of any brand.
I like that. It's a very utopian vision. I like it a lot.
I love that, Alex. And I was thinking about my digital wardrobe and gifting it to my own nieces and nephews and off-world living and other planets that they might be living on, and how they're going to be wearing fashion in the future in other worlds. Not this one.
Thank you very much. Well, before I say thank you to our panelists, I would like to see if we have any Q&As. It's always kind of my favourite bit for other people to ask questions that I don't have to think of necessarily. Can I run your microphone? Yes, I'm going to run your microphone.
What an amazing panel, and thank you to all the great panelists, great moderator. Would love to ask your take. Do you think we'll ever get to the stage, especially in the context of interoperability, when the quality assurance bit is not done manually by human interactions, but is actually part of the technology, that will, in a way that will enable the designer to kind of maintain a degree of control about how their IP gets represented in the digital space?
Big topic, accountability. I think it's going to be platform dependent. So if the platforms who are hosting or games are hosting the different creators' assets, it's going to be up to them if they want to keep and retain customers to make sure that they can have any file format in their domain, so it can transfer across and creators can keep their quality control. I feel if one platform decides that they can host any sort of quality, everyone's going to move to there, so it's in their own interest to basically make it as accessible as possible, I think.
Yeah, I echo everything that Isabella says always, but I also think that artificial intelligence is going to completely reimagine all of that. We're only just on the cusp of it, so it's a brilliant question, and I think we're going to see AI being used to rewrite rules of fashion as we're witnessing time of it right now.
Yeah, great question. I think the technology is there, right? It's already way ahead of us. So I think it's just the human application that is catching up. So I think yes, interoperability, massive issue still, and being able to take one thing to the next thing. From a platform perspective, we need to kind of smash all of that, I think, and come up with a common standards where you can move from one place to another without having to buy more, or do different kind of behaviours that should be much more seamless. I think that's where we'll be in the next year or two. But technology exists. It's kind of, we just need to catch up with it.
Thank you. Amazing.
Hello, I'm Frankie. Do you envision a future where brands will have their own avatars, sort of in-house avatars that are dedicated to the brands?
Can I just say that I think every brand's going to have its own AI, let alone its own avatar. Like, can you imagine that Louis Vuitton has an AI, and Diesel has an AI, and it's going to happen. I really believe that each brand will have, and then we'll all have to have our own AIs to defend ourselves against the brand's AIs. But it will happen like that. And so, yeah, I very strongly believe that every brand will have its or at least its own group avatars, right? Because you might want to have a community and you want your community to be involved. So I think inclusion is a good point instead of just having one face, but I definitely think every single brand's going to have its own AI.
Yeah, we've got a physical kind of robot in our office called Vicky. Terrible name for this particular robot because I don't know, she doesn't look like it. Sorry if any Vicky's in the room today, but she's connected to ChatGPT, and she has personality, movement, and immediately answers really, really difficult questions much better than you can even think about it, and faster as well. So one of the things we're exploring is imagine having Vicky or any of her friends in the retail environment, being able to kind of have a conversation, but also have much more meaningful exploration of what you're looking for, and then have things created in real time visually. Whether that's avatar, whether that's a customized garment, whatever it might be. So I think these are all things that are here right now. It's just how we find the right application and also the right kind of use case, business case for it.
Yeah, I echo Alex and James entirely. I think also the AI idea is bang on, that like just an avatar is almost too limiting for those big brands. Yeah, so I think that's bang on.
Frankie, I love what you're doing at Move AI, by the way, and I'm a big fan. I've been using artificial intelligence on MetaHumans recently to create an augmented and AI-powered collection. I don't know if you saw that. But to your point on brands having avatars, I think absolutely many. I've got many. It's an ever-growing collection. I think most of the luxury brands that we know and love today will all be creating avatar experiences for us to wear on our physical bodies, but also in their virtual worlds and spaces that they create.
Great. Well, thank you, and Kadeen, I love watching your avatar sort of travel around the world.
Any more questions? All right. Cool. Well, I'd just like to say thank you so much to our panelists. Great to have a chat with you. Thank you so much. Two more great panelists. Two more. And then just to let you know, there is a bunch of cyber magazines. Nicely modelled by Claire. Thank you, Claire. So if you do want one, I think they're just at the front. I think there's only like 50 or 60, so maybe grab one if you really want. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, James. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the fantastic conversation. I knew that every conversation is going to talk about AI today. So. There's no way to avoid it this week. So thank you so much.
All my questions were written by ChatGPT.
That's what you're thinking.
I don't know if enough times now that I feel like hopefully.
Hey, how are you?
Java Squad.
I saw one picture over there.
Like 0 to 10 is like, it's like, okay, it interrupts, you know, suddenly it just like vanishes. You know, I mean, that's a common skill that it's like, wow. Hi! Is it live? Oh, hello! Who's watching? Everyone. Hi! Spatial stream is too. Oh my god, and you're responsible for that, right? So proud of Astrid. She's doing an amazing job. Hello, everyone who's there.
Adriana Illustration.
Yay!
Watch her, follow her on what are we?
Twitter or
Instagram.
Twitter is Adriana NFT, but Instagram is Adriana Illustration. Wow.
Yes.
So
we'll be
can
here
people
for
talk
the-
right now or not?
Say again?
Can people say something here, like interact?
No.
Sorry guys, I would love to say hi to you.
They're on the chat. We can log in.
See you later.
interactive, you know what I mean?
Perfect. Today, perfect. Didn't know what we
Like on camera.
Stop it. Extended identity. Really good stuff.
Okay, so myself on that. I do I already contacted you guys via LinkedIn. I still got to reach out to you guys because it's not funny. Yeah, we're running through on the is there any possibility
I have a meeting now, so I gotta go.
We have Costas Kazantzis from the Fashion Innovation Agency, Louise Lang from Digital Twin, Leslie Holden from the Digital Fashion Group, Leanne Elliott Young from the Institute of Digital Fashion with her fan club, and Maud Drift from EPAM. So thank you so much. I'm going to hand over to Federica.
Thank you, Claire. And welcome to this panel. I will start with the first question for all of you. And
I'm starting with maybe a provocative question, and that is, does an established fashion brand need a digital collection? And if it does, when do you think is the right moment to start thinking about it? Yes? You can
No.
No.
So me and Leslie said we were going to predominantly argue on this panel, so here we go. Yes. I think from the point of inception, definitely the landscape is ready for it. We've seen that the IRL and URL realities are something that need to work together and should be working around one another. They should be working in tandem and in unison, not separately. And I think right now, the Web3 space and the fashion luxury space is a bit like oil and water. So part of our work at IUDF is creating a synergy between those two realities. So yes. Let's go. Who's off?
At all. I said no because I agree with everything Leanne said, naturally. But a company has to think very carefully about, why am I doing this? What is it for? Who is it for? I already have a brand, I have a brand reputation, and what is digital going to add to that? And I think that's really important. So I would say no, because you really have to think about it first.
Okay, I would say yes. I think ultimately in 3 to 5 years, every single brand will have digital twins. There will be a digital version of every physical item, and the ones that don't adopt now will be left behind. I think that there's big, sort of high street brands that are already quite far behind where the market is, and even new brands are coming onto the space, are further ahead of brands, and brands have quite a lot of catching up to do in this space. So I think they should start now.
I agree with the yes, but it depends on objectives, right? Of the brands, of the company. I think within luxury retail, if I look at our customers, I think the challenge they have and they face, it's on invitation only. It are one-time purchases, and so how do I actually build a connection with the consumer, right? So how do I let consumers create for brand desirability? And then I think digital provides additional touch points, which are quite interesting, and with the advanced technology, I think brands should really play in this space.
You? Yeah, I would say yes as well. I think that initially brands kind of thought that digital product is only relevant within video games and for people who exist within gamified environments. However, the same tools that were created initially for the video gaming industry are now building from the core the infrastructure of every metaverse experience that we will be having. So in that context, I think that it's relevant to say that each one of us is becoming more or less part of these gamified experiences and environments, and therefore the distribution of digital product within those realms is extremely relevant for fashion brands.
Okay, so just summarizing, let's say that a brand has carefully thought whether to go, let's say, digital or not, and they say, okay, let's do it. So what are the main tools and skills that define the know-how then in the kind of digital world? And I think this has been touched in the previous panel as well. Do you think that this know-how should be eventually developed in-house, or there is space actually for agencies to exist and collaborate?
Shall I go with this one? Shall I start? Or okay, cool. So I think we have to see it like in different pillars, because if we're talking about fashion design, then the tools would be mainly digital design software like Clo3D, Marvelous Designer, which have been used for a while now within big luxury brands. Luxury brands have established teams who are actually working with these tool sets to generate digital product. But if we see it on the side of showcasing, which is also extremely relevant, because apart from generating a digital asset, I think it's very important to also be able to animate it and distribute it to diverse audiences across the world. So on that side of things, I would say that game engines, as I briefly mentioned before, build that infrastructure of being able to curate different kinds of 3D experiences. Apart from designing 3D worlds, creators are also able to articulate and narrate the ways they want their audience to interact with those experiences, which for me is fascinating. And to the second scale of the question about the in-house skill sets, I think that of course it helps if brands have those skills internally, because they can cross-collaborate with other departments between design, marketing, communications, all of that. But to me, I think one of the most important things is, apart from the 3D skill sets, it's also very, very relevant for brands to have in-house leadership roles who understand the technology in depth and are able to manage and curate those kinds of projects to better extents.
Definitely.
I was going to say as well, obviously, like Clone 3D is an amazing gravity simulating software. So that means it's a shortcut for lots of design processes. But also as well, augmented reality, Snap, we see the fact that you can actually quite easily, and also with Spark AR, design for those functionalities which are quite simple and quite practical coding. And I think actually the big conversation here is the pivot is a community pivot. Just seeing Pharrell become the creative director for Louis Vuitton. So if you as an individual have a community and an aesthetic agenda, then you can create your own brand from that. So as opposed to talking about luxury brands and conglomerates, it's actually talking about the future, which is the individuals in this room and the people that have the gaze and the vocabulary to actually stare into the future without all the nuts and bolts that a luxury fashion house has. So I think the brave steps come from the community pivots, and then actually luxury brands are listening. And we'll see much more that these luxury brands will be painted in their fabrics for communities to use within their production to then create a scalable version of their brand rhetoric. So I think that's like an interesting part.
I mean, I think I'm come from a product background, and just starting with design, Clone 3D, right at the beginning of the concept of design, will help every single brand with their digital journey, because once you start at the beginning, it can save with product development, it can save in sampling, you can then run that all the way through to production, and then afterwards you have the 3D assets to use in metaverse and wearables. But if it can all start at the beginning, I think it's a really easy fix for them to do in-house. But there are much more complicated things like avatars and AR that I think they're probably outsourced at the moment, because it's not worth bringing the skills in-house yet. And there's a lot of people in this room who are really amazing at that.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw in one additional perspective, right, which I think is taking one step back and then look at it holistically, or at least try to look at it. I think we live in an era of search-based e-commerce, right? And I think everybody that represents a brand here today is paying an awful lot of money for digital marketing as such on centralized platforms. And I think the opportunity here I love the decentralized web for that matter, is actually to start building community and change the experience, right? So how do you evolve from click to buy to experience to buy, and which skill sets do you actually need to make that happen? To Leanne's point, if you look at this week's Snap introduction of ray tracing, right? So enabling or rendering light and shine on products, that's great. So do we expect a fashion designer to also master that? I think that becomes a key question. I think if you compare it to e-commerce back in the days, I think digitally becomes, again, it creates an equal level playing field for a fashion designer, because only leveraging Snap as a channel, I think it has distributed or social commerce checkout capabilities, so you can go from digital quick fashion to immediate checkout or convert in a single channel, and that makes it quite interesting. And then that's where one of the experiences could start. So you're changing the customer journey, leveraging digital fashion?
Wait till the end. Everything starts with education, and it is very expensive to digitalize a company. Many companies face a huge hurdle in understanding what to do, how to do it, where to go, who to speak to, how much money this is going to cost. I mean, there's many other things that they need to spend money on just now. Perhaps it is also a luxury to start thinking about digital. I would say that you have to go out of house to get the right skills and the right kind of people to come in to talk to you in the language that you need. One of the key things I would say is that we must be able to bring Web 2 people into Web 3 and communicate properly with them about what that can be. It's quite a hurdle to get over if you just sort of jump into a LinkedIn webinar and think, what are they talking about? What is this language? So that needs to be made clearer, and it needs to be more accessible, and there needs to be a clear journey towards digitalization. And I'm talking not just about the metaverse, but I'm talking about right from the very first point of a designer using 3D virtual prototyping, using Clo, and then how that links through. And perhaps the metaverse should not be the end result.
It's because it's not formed yet. We talk about the metaverse as a constellation of touch points, so be it AR, VR, Decentraland, etc., or Twitter Spaces, you know? Like, what does it mean, actually? And I think that vocabulary, which you perfectly introduced, is something that is very complex. A friend of ours who's quite, a confident woman, you know, she basically tried to open a wallet and instead created an NFT called Sarah Blonstein. You know, it's really, it's kind of like, everything feels back end, you feel stupid at the first point. So I think to your point, Leslie, it is very complicated. It's because it is complex right now. And there's so many different options and gateways and ways to navigate, but that's the exciting part of this. And we all have the opportunity to build this new narrative and do it the right way, to make it inclusive and diverse and sustainable. And that is what IODF really stand for, which is why a third of all our projects are philanthropic, have our IRL URL Academy. And it is all about how do we, not to use the word handhold, but how do we all do it together collectively to make sure that some of the fundamental mistakes aren't made, which means spending budgets where they don't need to be, but also as well giving the power to those who can have the opportunity, the creator economy, to actually build it with us. So yeah.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add in terms of the tools before that, yeah, as Liane was saying, there's so many different ways of kind of realizing those projects. So coming back to digital design, sometimes brands associate like digital product with the fact that they will need to create it only through Clo 3D and Marvelous Designer. However, we shouldn't forget technologies that are able to actually allow us to digitize existing physical pieces and then completely manipulate them by using 3D software, like photogrammetry, for example, volumetric capture, which are techniques that initially would require access to very expensive equipment, but gradually the technology is becoming much more democratized through smartphone applications. So yeah, as I was saying, I think it's about those leadership roles who will be able to adapt to that landscape and kind of identify the right technology pipeline for each specific creative output, I guess.
I guess it's a matter of culture, right? Because you were touching upon the language, the narrative, also the opportunity to blend the tools with an intention. And so when it comes to marketing and branding a digital fashion collection, how do we do that? Is there any difference in a way from any marketing strategy that we use when we work in the physical world?
I think it's a really complex web, back to that point. I mean, I don't know who of us are on Discord, what an absolute mind that place is. It's like constantly being stung by 1,000 bees and everyone's like kind of aggressive. Whereas, and it's very complex, but there's also lots of really helpful moderators that work for free to handhold and give you code, and it's just this kind of marvelous universe. And so where do you launch? If you want to market a digital collection, where do you launch it? Who's the end customer? I think it absolutely depends on what the digital collection is. If it's a hate or a Bored Ape, obviously Discord and Twitter. If it's a collection in which you're trying to change the system, in which we did a project with H&M, and it was about how we transform the business of H&M, a fast fashion house, and how we pivot that to one that doesn't greenwash, but instead actually rewrite some sustainability narratives within the brand. So within that, we launched a digital collection. So we're talking to fast fashion consumers, which are very social. We didn't touch Discord. So again, it comes back to the point of who is and it's very, the narration of it is very complex, and it has to be sat with the right brand, with the right, and then incremented it's what space it sits within, it's launched within, it comes back to the brand vocabulary. In the same way, your physical collection, like how would you launch that? There'll be different influencers, there'll be different networks. I think that's the parallels between the two. Actually, quite simple. You have to actually, number one, create legacy, because we are in a time where all of our work at some points is seen as gimmick. So we now speak with C-suite and not PR directors, because it means it has legacy, and it's about business innovation and not just one-step PR moment buzz. So I think it has to be about what the demographic you're speaking to and work backwards from that. And it's very complex, but the answers are definitely there.
Yeah, just one answer on that. I think we're used to push a lot from a marketing perspective, and I think the consumer is capable enough to actually pull information. Only the gamified mechanisms, I think, can change now, and I think for the better. So that becomes interesting, right? Yesterday I queued up for a New Balance Stone Island sneaker. I queued up with 300k people because I could actually see the amount of people in the queue. I thought, oh man, they should have put it on chain with an NFT related to it, which would have given me a fairer chance to actually get my hands on the sneaker. So I'm pulling that information, you don't have to push it, and I think that is applicable to a lot of consumers. I think from a marketing perspective, I think a lot of businesses talk about consumer experience, and I think for me personally, it's brand experience, user experience, consumer experience, combined that actually may praise for brand desirability. I think ultimately, whether it's physical, digital, virtually, it is about brand desirability where it comes to marketing.
Yeah, I think that brands that you need to fish where the fish are. Essentially, it's one thing with their existing audience. Their existing audience, you need to educate and help them on the journey to understand why they need digital fashion and what it means. And if their community isn't quite ready, then it's a huge opportunity to garner new communities, such as gaming and people that are already into Roblox or digital fashion. It's a very easy win if you go to different communities.
Yeah, I've not really got much to add to this. You've all said a fantastic amount. I mean, it really depends on who the market is, obviously, but the market for digital fashion is pretty clear, isn't it? I mean, it's a bit millennials, it's mostly Gen Z, it's a bit of Gen X. And I think companies like Gucci are showing us how to market on Roblox, which I think is very worrying when you think that they're selling to 13-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, and why are they doing this? Why are they marketing to that age group? The only reason that I can possibly think of is that is their future customer base. Yeah, absolutely. So they get them young. And I think that's questionable. And I think we have to question whether that is how we want digital fashion to be marketed. So I think, yeah. Thank you.
I think, you know, just example, Alo Yoga, my 13-year-old would never ever wear Alo Yoga. I don't think they even do children's wear. But she's got Alo Yoga pants in Roblox. And you know, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe when she graduates to adult clothing, she's going to wear Alo Yoga. And I think this is the kind of the pinch point for brands, the entry point.
It's also so ugly.
I'm just going to leverage the fact that my daughter, right, I think she's a representation for Gen Z, studies fashion design, and I think one thing to actually look at is she's a digital born native, right? So I mean, and currently she's consuming content in quite a boring way on a small screen in 2D, and I think her outlook is consuming content in an immersive way in 3D, and I think that's what we should focus on.
Yeah, I was going to say also.
The other thing is interoperability. I mean, which is a big positioning piece, but also is again very complex. Like, how do you move from one asset? How does that move from your wallet from Decentraland, from say DressX, and then when you would like to also wear it in Meta, and then if you want to wear it in AR on a different platform, there's all these roadblocks at the moment, and then Roblox. So how do you navigate that? I think interoperability is one of the exciting position points and what the consumers are demanding. But also, like, how do you launch a digital fashion product? Again, by listening to the individuals that are on these games that have been brought up in that space, that also that Depop culture where they want to buy, own, sell, wear, trade. And they see an asset exactly as we see it's an asset, you know, it's an asset that doesn't sit in their wardrobe at all. If you go into a wardrobe, it's not about hoarding. It's actually about sharing and seeing it as a financial asset. They can earn more. They can also customize and resell. And I think that is the really interesting model. And that is the model of youth right now. And of course, it's very complex speaking to 10, 13-year-olds about their fashion choices. But I think what's interesting about that perspective as well, it's not about fashion, it's about identity. We've got a white paper that's launching, it's primarily about Roblox consumers, players, how they see themselves, what gender means to them, and why does a 10-year-old cis white boy, why do they have a cage around themselves, 3 breasts, a supersized female, and toxic green skin? What does that mean? I mean, it's crazy to see, you know, but it's this visual identity that they've built, and the fact that they have a toolbox in which they can not just colour things in or put stickers on their jacket, but actually craft a whole identity world that they can play in and earn from. And that's what's really exciting. And for us, that's what we see the next part of IDF being, supporting that, supporting the ecosystem so that they can actually have profitable asset shares in their future, in their wardrobe.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think with the digital tools, actually, yeah, what's happening is that the body is no longer a barrier and territory in fashion design, so you don't have to see the body as the territory of, you know, putting fabric on top. It's actually the starting point of generating anything you could possibly imagine, and to me that's like extremely fascinating in terms of the layers of abstraction that you can play with and the amount of creative freedom that you have to kind of design and curate immaterial layers on top of your own identity, in terms of the fact that there are no limits and barriers in regards to that. So I think, yeah, that's really, really powerful.
But it comes down to money then. It's about how you sell that asset on.
So it's also again about community. So you can earn collectively, and the asset doesn't have to be purchased. You can create an app. You can build an asset, build on top of it from a free asset, and create scarcity. on that asset. So actually it's the creative journey is paid for effectively, you can earn from, and which just seems like quite an astonishing perspective. Yeah, but I know what you mean, it's about worth. But cultural worth, cultural kudos is cultural capital. It's more sustainable.
Can I throw in the conversation something else? Because you're describing a different, completely different world, because we're talking about new way to express ourselves, new way to represent our body, to detach from our body and create another body, and yet, you know, exactly. What about then for a brand managing this world and this portfolio of users or community, as you say, and the old customership? Do brands need to kind of manage them together, these kind of customerships? Do they, how much can they blend?
I think it will be licensed. So you license part of the brand fabricality to those individuals. We did a project, we got 6 industry world firsts, and one of them was Roxanda at London Fashion Week to create an augmented reality garment that was minted and became an NFT. But it was sold in pounds, not crypto. So everyone hated us at that. Of course, all of the Web3 crypto bros like, it makes no sense. But the point is that we wanted to choose a luxury house based in London that has no Web3 aesthetic, no Web3 community, and see, it's a testing ground. How do you pivot these people, the regular customers, to having a wallet, to understanding an NFT, to the understanding how powerful it was to have the file of an asset and what that meant. And it was, you know, it worked. People purchased the NFT, but the hand-holding again behind and the educational bit behind was 5, 7, we're still doing it, 12 months of work of taking all of these individuals who are women 40 plus, purchasing a luxury brand. They purchased it from the website to start, okay, but then we had to set up the wallets. So it is very complex, the two quite separate worlds. And I think it is, how do you blend those vocabularies? Do you? Or is there towers of the brand positioning, which one of them is licensing part of your brand to these separate communities and separate transactional and creative ventures in which they can see their brand go forth. Obviously Nike at the forefront with Nike ID, then so obviously the 15 years later working with Artifact makes sense.
No, I think that a great way to kind of be able to nurture these communities is also by linking physical product to digital assets. Recently I was doing consultancy for a big sportswear brand, and the main question that they had, like they were saying to me that, you know, we know how to create like a physical store location happenings, we know how to create physical experiences, bring people into the store. What we're struggling with is how can we maintain that community that we built there beyond the store, outside of the store, within these metaverse experiences, within social media, within digital platforms. And I think a great way to do that is by, as I was saying before, linking physical product to digital assets and exploring what is the potential of that. Recently we worked on a project at the FIA with Snapchat and an Austrian-based company called Reactive Reality. So the idea was to digitize existing pieces from our wardrobe, which we had for a couple of years, and then create a template, a platform through which we could completely manipulate and interact with those garments. So potentially, like instead of just acquiring a physical asset, you could acquire that asset, but also a ticket to endless digital experiences and ways of interacting with that asset. And I think to me that is great as well in terms of increasing product life cycles and helping consumers and audiences kind of hold on to their products, but also nurturing communities that are not super tech savvy as well by giving them more value to the physical product that they purchase in a way.
I think that it's a good point. So I think that the loyalty program is a really interesting one of onboarding new customers. So for example, at Digital Twin, we're working with an influencer we just launched with one. She's got a very Web 2 audience, but we knew that when we launched with her. So what we did was everything is available as a digital and a physical, and then you can check out normally as anyone would, and then you redeem your NFT. So there's no barriers to entry. It's very easy. You can just use a Taurus wallet. And then the NFT, once you've redeemed it, gives you access to a VIP per VIP loyalty program. So that would be like an incentive for people to bother to do it, because I think there's a resistance, as you said, Leanne. It's not easy to have a wallet, you know, and there's so many technicalities.
Did many people take up the NFT?
Not yet.
Yeah,
That's a thing. I'm like, did you redeem your NFT?
I feel like we need to all be there, like, crazy,
Yeah.
singing and dancing, be like,
Exactly.
this is what it
No, it's really tricky, and it's like how do you educate them quickly enough that don't be scared of it. It's really easy to do, and I think the other thing is collaborations as well. You know, just to mention obviously Epic Games here, and what Balenciaga did with Fortnite is a great use case of how people can, you know, a brand can go into a video game and then into a digital collection without affecting their actual brand. It's like a completely separate collaboration with somebody that's really doing it. I think that's good.
Yeah, I think it also depends on the brand and the existing target audience. I think for me, Ralph Lauren is a good example, right? Because at low cost, they digitize historical catalogs, and they monetize on selling skins, which is quite easy. Doesn't have a Web3 element in there, but I think it's a good example in the industry. If you look at, for example, luxury retail, I think token-gated hype drops seem to work. Token-gated access to events like this seem to work, but I think that there's one thing that's not there yet, which is a lot of companies, brands, they ride the hype cycle, but they're not very systematic after the hype cycle. So I think if you look at Artifact, that is leading at the forefront with their digital ecosystem, they really have a very strong strategic roadmap, right? So it's really systematic, and I think having those strategic roadmaps in place to continue engaging the community, that's really important to maintain and then the community, but also to elevate loyalty.
There's a lot of brands that just say, you know, here's VIP membership, but like without any roadmap. You know, it's just, yeah.
Can I just ask, and actually open for question on the floor? Yes.
Thank you. Great session. I've got so many questions, but I'll try and keep it down to one. So it depends on the intention, right? If digital collections are there to encourage more physical clothing sales, or are they there to replace physical clothing sales and therefore make money off low-cost digital products, do you think ultimately digital collections will mean more physical clothing production or less?
Yes, I do. Unfortunately, I do. I think of course, there is the argument that digital clothing is a very sustainable thing and it's going to encourage sustainability, etc., etc., etc. But I think at the end of the day, it's also about creating more emotion, more feelings about clothing, and I think the key is digital, and it's really about driving towards buying physically. So I see that as the main thing that's actually going to push digital forward in the industry, as the promise of selling more clothes, unfortunately. But I do see digital, and I know you're going to disagree with me, which is great, because that's what it's about, but I do see the importance of digital through the whole digitalization process, of course, from concept through to virtual showroom selling, totally digital, no samples, it's a no-brainer, that should happen totally, and then at the other end, e-commerce, all digital. So that part in the middle, which is so difficult to digitalize, and that's the biggest problem. And of course, you've got companies like Shein who are using AI just to make more clothes. So you have to be careful. Who's going to argue with me?
So last Fashion Week, we paraded around, you might have seen us on various physical billboards, digital billboards, myself and Kath Tain, my co-founder over there, as avatars and as holograms, asking the whole of the BFC and the designers, at the end of the world, do you need more clothes? If the world is in crisis, do you need more clothes? The answer is no. What we need is more nuanced creativity. The need for newness and the actual fundamental aspects of fashion are about play, are about kinship, are about exploring your creative identities. They're not just to keep you warm. I'm absolutely fucking sweating in this, right? But I'm not wearing it because it's a really cold room. I'm wearing this because this is my digital aesthetic. And actually, the future of this industry, 100%, is about actually solving some of the pain points in fashion, which are primarily diversity, inclusion, sustainability. And actually, the generations that are stepping into having purchase power are ones that do care about their digital identity. 65% of them care more about their digital identity than physical. We saw it with music, we saw it with publications. I have a coffee table, beautiful publication, but I generally read all my discourse and media online. So I think that physical fashion will actually be an asset that you own, which will have emotional value, and we'll start considering what that emotional value is for those items. Because we are in a climate crisis, and we're also in a financial crisis, we're in a social, political quagmire. So digital fashion and this industry, the pivot needs to occur because for your wallets, for your creativity, and because of the planet, we need to do that. And so brands actually now have to start making less. So we had an amazing meeting with Kering, and that was about how to produce less. A meeting with Balenciaga, how do we produce less? So actually brands want to produce less, they still want to earn. So this is the answer 100%.
So just going to talk quickly after that, following on into on-demand production. So, we're very focused on demand, so we don't make anything unless it's ordered first. And digital assets are a great way to be able to test customer demand before you produce it. So I think businesses can't shift to on-demand, obviously because they've got retails and e-commerce to fill in, it's not their business model. However, if they could just do a small amount and use digital clothing to say, what's your favourite? Go out to their audience, go out to their communities and ask what their preference is, what do they want, instead of brands just saying this is what you're getting. I think that will have an impact on overconsumption.
Are we saying at the moment digital fashion is an ideology rather than a reality?
Yeah, I'd say first of all that when seeing the two entities as completely distinct, like physical and digital, I think there is no way of reaching a point where we're gonna create a better industry. It's about finding those blended ways of using the digital as a way to enhance what's already there and not replace. But coming back to your point, I kind of agree on that side of things, because we're not yet at that stage when digital fashion could be mass adopted, and that is because of hardware. It's interesting to parallelize the release of the first smartphone. When the first smartphone was released, we didn't even know why we needed such a device. We started acquiring them, and gradually the needs were built upon that, like social media, using your phone as a camera, etc. Whereas now we are existing in the exact opposite landscape. We have a whole new generation of 3D artists, digital designers, who are creating inspiring content using these tool sets. However, what we're still lacking is that user-friendly device which kind of will allow us to experience that content in real time in an everyday life scenario. So I think we need to wait for a little bit of time until we reach that point to be able to talk about digital fashion completely changing our consumption habits when it comes to physical, and therefore production of physical garments.
Without an ideology, there's no change. And if some of the biggest brands in the space with biggest buying power are asking those questions, it means that they're the most valuable and the right ones. Yeah.
But I think it's important for us to consider that it is an ideology at the moment, in many ways, that we're working towards something. It's still very, very early days, and the hardware is not there in the way that we need it to be for the dream of where it's going to go.
I think it moves so quick. I mean, you're talking about volumetric scanning, iMove. I think one of the representatives were here. You can now on your phone scan a person and get a walk cycle. A week ago, actually 3 days ago, I didn't think that was possible. So I think those, the AI, how that's just stormed in the last month. I think that all of these incremental parts, we need to create a roadmap so that when they do turn on, we're all ready for it.
Just one remark in addition, going back to the question. I think besides, let's say, emerging technology advancing, I think there's one other element. I think today we're hosted by Epic Games, a great company. But if I look at the gaming industry, I think once they are prepared to move on-chain, open or remove their fences, right? I think now currently we see resale marketplaces. I think ultimately in an ideal future, and I don't think that's 5 years from now, we will see marketplaces for digital fashion embedded in mobile ecosystems, right? But I think not only hardware is relevant for that, but also relevant industries to preferably move on chain.
I think it's about time, but thank you very much. And I think we can take a break a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. We're actually not going to take a break. I know you want to, but it's very hard to get you back in your seat. So we're going to jump straight into the fourth and last panel. I think you're going to be really excited about it. If you need to get a glass of champagne before the last panel, you're welcome to get your glass of champagne. But our last talk is what is next? A deep dive
Does he need this
into the innovators.
Oh, he'll be back. Kimmy, there's one over there. Let's see
Amazing and historic from Right Click Save, who's going to be moderating.
Oh my God, she's got the same shirt as me. I thought I was.
We have Frankie Tabor here of Fashion AI. We have Inara Nazarova of Hype. And Blake. And Secret.
I'm going to see if the seat in the front is safe. Sorry. Is the seat next to you? No. Okay.
The left one?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I think today I've been utterly converted to in-person panel discussions. I don't think I'm doing virtual panel discussions anymore because just the connections between all of you, between the panelists, it's just an entirely different conversation. So we have Alex Estoric from Right Click Save who's going to moderate, Inara Nazarova from Hype and Armoire. We have Blake Lazensky from Outlier Ventures, Frankie Tabor from Fashion AI, and Ziqui Zing, is it Zing or Ziqui Zing from Extended Identity. So I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation. We're going to take a deep dive into innovation, and you know they're going to be talking about AI as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Alex Estrick. I run a magazine called Right Click Save. I'm slightly out of my depth here because I normally work with digital art, but I think one thing it's probably worth starting with is that we're living in the creator economy now, and one of the things about Web3 is that thanks to technologies like NFTs, blockchain, smart contracts, as well as AI, a lot of industries that were previously distinct and separate are sort of flirting, merging, and threatening each other. And I think one of the things I'm personally interested to learn tonight from your perspectives, guys, is in all of this, are we actually going to see good stuff, or is it a race to the bottom? But I think, if I may, can I ask you all to introduce yourselves and just to stake out your positions and how AI might be affecting your industries right now?
Thank you. My name is Anar Nazarova. I'm VP of Metaverse at Hype, which is one of the oldest Web3 marketing agencies. That means we've survived several bear market crashes, which is gives you a lot of experience and also hope that those moments are temporary, and we always see the light at the end of the tunnel. I got into this industry kind of like a cat professionally. I've had a lot of professional lives, but all of them were mixing creativity with technology constantly. For a long time, technology was just a department in a creative industry. There was like 2-3 guys working on your website, and then nobody really talked to them. And now we see this conversation open up and include people from the investment side, creators, and I kind of am in between those people and building bridges.
Thank you. Blake Lezensky. I lead the execution of the Farfetch Dream Assembly Basecamp at Outlier Ventures. So I'm super grateful to be here, and I look forward to connecting with everybody building tech for the revolution of fashion, for Web3 fashion, and for fashion at large. Let's see how we can support one another. And how AI influences me. Well, in many ways, there was a running joke that with the end of last year, 90% of Web3 VCs suddenly rebranded AI VCs. So that's one way. But on a more serious note, AI is bringing change. A lot of people are afraid of it, think that we will get automated and that human will no longer be a component. But in my eyes, the rise of AI in many ways means that you will never have to do things twice. Once your creativity kind of gets spilled on paper, on a digital screen, it can get replicated by AI. AI can be a support to human creativity, empower people that maybe previously didn't have the skills or the means to be creative. So in many ways, I look forward to what emerges from this combination of machine and human creativity.
Hi guys, it's Ziki from Extended Identity. So we're a London-based digital fashion lab. We're working on trying to onboard more Web2 users and platforms to Web3. So I think AI, especially this year, is going to be a huge plus. I think AI can be a tool to, no matter how to increase the infrastructure and also increase the overconsumption things in the physical fashion industry. And then I think AI, no matter how we can plot something with AI. For example, we can plot AR with AI, which we can kind of combine AI with human intelligence. Because right now I think we can't replace by AI, and we don't want to replace by AI. So I think that's going to be a huge plus for this year.
Hi everyone, I'm Frankie from Fashion AI, and we very much focus on generative AI in the fashion space. So I think there are 3 different angles that you need to look at. So you need to look at it from the creative perspective. For creatives, this is a fantastic opportunity. We've got loads of people in our community that don't necessarily come from a traditional fashion background, that come from gaming or graphic design, and so it's a huge opportunity for new talent to come into the fashion industry and bring in their influences. For fashion brands, yes, there is a bit of a threat because anyone can create a Nike generative AI piece that looks incredible, or Alexander McQueen, or you name it. However, I think it's very similar to the music industry with the streaming disruption, and I think that fashion brands need to embrace AI and even encourage designers, but also their consumers, to start innovating and creating with AI and then rewarding their consumers. And then the last piece is from a tech perspective. So you have to ask yourself who created the AI in the first place and the AI models. Is it Google? Is it Microsoft? Who owns these? Is it open source or is it a closed ecosystem? So when you're choosing the technology, you have to be very conscious about where you are investing your time and your money for the sake of our future generations.
Maybe just staying with you, Frankie, I think one thing I am always skeptical about when it comes to human creators working with AI is the extent to which we are reproducing old formulae in a machine guise. And I just wondered, maybe starting with you, what constitutes originality at this point?
Well, I think it really depends on your views, the concept of ownership and originality. So people either fall on the side of, you know, I created this, I am the originator, and therefore I can monetize this. Or you're of the view of no ideas are original and everything builds on top of themselves. When it comes to generative AI, if you look at Midjourney, for example, you would assume that because it is being trained on all of these images and the metadata, that when you're writing your prompt, it is searching this big model of images and it's just mashing them together. And that would be very easy then if you're in the courts and you are saying this image was created with my artwork, to then go into the database and see, okay, this is what it was trained on. However, it's not as simple as that. It's a mathematical model, it's patterns, so there is no way of deciphering exactly what piece of artwork went into this. So you can include or disclude various images, so you can include images of Monet and have Impressionist art, or you can disclude from the training model all forms of Impressionist art and you won't be able to create Impressionist art, essentially.
And how does that affect the fashion industry?
How does it affect the fashion industry?
Creativity, fashion design?
That's a difficult question, and we're going to see how it all pans out. Some brands are going to embrace it. I would love to see brands, if they are already in the metaverse and they have their NFTs, they've got a Discord channel, I would love for them to start a Midjourney bot within their Discord channel to encourage designers and their users to come up with new novel ideas, and then to turn those into 150 limited edition pieces in both the physical world and the digital world. That would be embracing AI. Or a brand might decide to hire the best lawyers and go after Midjourney and anyone who tries to reproduce their work and enforce that Midjourney is not allowed to use Nike in prompts. So we'll see where it all pans out and where people land within this landscape.
Thanks very much. Ziki, what's your position here? Where's the originality in your industry right now?
I think the originality for digital fashion industry right now is to have mass adoption for Web2 users, because when I talk to people who first hearing about digital fashion, they don't know anything about it and they're curious about it, but they want to try it. They want to try it on, but they're afraid of it. They either afraid it's gonna be a scam, or either they're afraid it's gonna take off their lot of time and getting nothing. So I think the huge plus for something AI can help with is to really increase the mass adoption in the digital fashion industry, which I was mentioning we can combine sort of augmented reality with artificial intelligence. For example, this can really accelerate the speed of auto try-on, because imagine I'm just taking an image of myself in my bedroom with really dark lighting and with my pajama, and the AR can do is really help the person to auto try on the piece of digital fashion, and AI can actually help you to get you out of the pajama. So it can kind of analyze your body skin color, your texture, and also combine the design you want to try on with your body. So I think this is a huge potential for AR. And so basically, I think what people are afraid of, like right now, in terms of like NFTs and also Web3, is that they can't see the utilities. So I think right now in this industry, we don't need like 10 more fashion brands. We don't need 10 more digital fashion brands. We don't need another like maybe 10 more fashion designers. But instead, we need a very solid based infrastructure which can link like Web2 brands to Web3 with smart contract and blockchain, which I think in terms of like speaking of infrastructure, I think what Web2 brands need is that they need like a blockchain-based CRM system and a merchandise system they can share. Because right now, when I'm talking to like Web2 brands with my friends, they are also using like their individual CRM system and also merchandise system, which they find is like it's not that efficient. But if we use like blockchain and AR to just accelerate the speed of like they can share the same basic database of the CRM and also the merchandise plan. They can actually share all the database and also accelerate their infrastructures. Yeah.
Blank. I would love to build on the points of my fellow panelists. You asked about originality as well as the implications for the fashion industry. So originality, well, much like with humans, we are what we eat, and AI can only give you what you feed it, what you train it on. So if it's a more generic but a larger data set, in some way or form it will always be derivative. But if there is a way to kind of implement creativity as input in a way that it's original at the human beginning, and then it goes into the model and trains the model, then the output would never be derivative. Let's imagine a fashion brand with an extremely large archive of designs. And I know a company from our accelerator, Alter, who's digitizing fashion archives. If that was an input for a model, and over time that archive was big enough, we already have a concept on a different panel of a brand-owned AI. We could have a Gucci AI that generates designs within Gucci aesthetic trained on its archives. And to go back to the second, or a young designer who has enough sketches to just input into the model, and then it will be his aesthetics that are not derivative, that are original, but they're still generative in many ways. And then implications for the fashion industry at large, really at every stage, from the ideation to directly being delivered to consumers. Ideation gets quicker, there is more room for creativity, less kind of grunt work. Prototyping gets cleaner, iterations move quicker. You can even use ChatGPT to ask about the materials you should pick for your design. I heard about a use case like that. Or a company doing 2D to 3D design that we had in the last cohort that once showed me textures on a Yeezy shoe, and they were zooming in, and those textures wouldn't get blurry. At some point, they just told me my computer wouldn't be able to handle it. So I'm thinking AI kind of relieves a lot of creativity that also sits with the consumers. It allows for mass customization, and it kind of makes them more engaged, and even enables an idea of an operating system like Platformy that kind of starts with the customer ideation, and then it goes directly into the product. So I think all those implications have the potential to kind of shake up the fashion industry, and also bring more people to the table in terms of creativity.
The question you asked at the beginning, if this is a race to the bottom, I think it is, but it doesn't have to be. There is a study or a discipline that talks about diffusion of innovation, is how quickly do household items actually become household items, whether it's a microwave or something else that we're familiar with. How long did it take for that item to actually be familiar? And AI feels a lot like a Pandora's box that we opened, not irresponsibly. I mean, this is what's happening. This is the state at which technology is at. But the natural assimilation process that before took years, now within a day starts to threaten people's careers, especially if they are creative. I think if you look at trains, for example, when they were first launched, there was no guardrails or, mind the gap signs that would protect you from running into or being on the train tracks in order for you to use a brilliant piece of innovation safely. So AI, I think, is very much like a train that is running on the tracks at a very fast speed into a lot of people's livelihoods and careers. But looking at fashion industry, I can't think of it as something that is already fair to designers. There's plenty of law cases where interns will submit their designs, they just get taken and reproduced into a product that then just ends up on the market. So it's not really fair for a creator to begin with, but it is pretty easy to draw a line that our destination is co-creation with technology. So we're being forced to just get on this ride anyway, because at some point we were saying, you know, do really companies need a website? Do you really need an Instagram page? It's like now, this is how we discover things and it's become normal. AI is becoming a very powerful co-creation tool that everybody talked about, this like Jarvis from Iron Man that's going to automate your life. Like AI kind of is that. It's able to take out super repetitive tasks that are boring to a human being anyways and speed up the process of getting from point A to B. It also has the ability to completely bypass you and just start producing products based off of your ingenuity. There will be another side to this innovation of being able to create immutable watermarks or some other way of being able to identify what is real and what is trained. But fashion can definitely benefit from it as a creative companion while also thinking of it as a tool that potentially might really complicate attribution.
Thank you. I want to go back to something that Ziki brought up, which is the question of helping customers on board from Web 2 to Web 3, but also helping companies on board from Web 2 to Web 3. And it seems that in some ways these two actors have different priorities. I mean, as you say, Inara, we're living in an age increasingly of co-creation between humans and machines, actually co-creation between artists and their collectors often, and presumably co-creation between, you know, big fashion brands and their audiences. So I guess I'm interested in each of your perspectives on the priorities for, shall we say, the creative industries or fashion industry, the gaming industry, as we make this sort of gradual switch or big switch from Web 2 to Web 3. Maybe start with Frankie again.
Yes, so I think AI is still out of the picture for a lot of brands. They're still grappling with converting to 3D and building those in-house 3D design teams, learning Clove 3D, and then moving to more animation tools like Blender, Unreal Engine, learning about augmented reality. So that's the first part. And then, as you mentioned, you know, digitizing archives in order to then train their own sort of white label GAN or generative AI tool, maybe bringing it outside of Discord and creating their own, you know, prompting engine for internal use, and then eventually for customers to create their own clothing. The issue really is with this space, there's so much creativity, there's so much personalization that when we translate it to the physical world, how can you deal with that amount of personalization without changing supply chains? However, we have already seen a move from global supply chains to more micro-localized supply chains, pop-ups and 3D printing. So that's really exciting because that's potentially more sustainable if the items then get shipped just locally, but it adds a lot of complexity if you go from one big factory to lots of little micro factories. But I think that's where we're headed, where we have digital fashion and physical fashion. When it comes to resale of products, how do you allow the resale of digital fashion and physical fashion if they are joined at the beginning? I think the link there is that when you own the physical item, that becomes the anchor for the NFT or the digital item. So when you resell the physical, you get transferred the NFT version. And that's how it'll probably move forward. And that's all I have to say on that point.
So yeah, I really like the idea of like co-create because I think everyone wants to take a part of like either the digital design or NFT they receive. So right now, like extended identity, we're launching a rentable NFT, which will allow like Web2 consumers. They can just like sign up with their username, like if my name is Ziki, I am with Ziki, and then when I rent one of the NFT, I can actually upload the photo and get a virtual try-on photo with design. And what like personalized about this is that I have like my name in the metadata, which like I take part of the design I received, the photo I received, and I have the chance to receive it as an NFT that is on-chain. So I think also like AI can really help to push and accelerate like customization. So because we talk to our customer a lot, they're always asking if they can, change the color of the design they're receiving, if they can take part of the dresses they're wearing. So I think AI is a huge plus that can allow the users to actually just type in like simple words out of their imagination. For example, I like pink dress, I just type pink dress, and I like flower pattern, and I just type in flower pattern, and I then can create a dress that combined and out of like my idea. So I think AI can really help accelerate customization and kind of like fits the customer's needs. Yeah.
So from the perspective of customers, real adoption is invisible. What I mean by that is I don't want to worry about my floor of my NFT dropping, but maybe I want to sell an augmented reality suit filter without even knowing that it's an NFT. But it being an NFT allows for that transaction. So I believe the real adoption is when you're not really knowing you're adopting a technology. You don't have to go past the psychological hurdle. In terms of brands, I feel we are already at that point. If you look at last year, what was going on with luxury brands, if you don't know what's going on, always follow the money. And if you follow the money, all of those activations and kind of explorations in Web3 were paid by marketing budgets and were seen as kind of a PR marketing stunt to kind of expose the brand IP into this new domain of communication. Right now it seems to be changing, and right now the operational departments, strategy departments are looking into using those technologies, especially generative AI at different stages of design. But what I'm really excited for, also in context of AI, Frankie touched on that point a little bit, community is king in Web3 and has always been king, queen in fashion. Brand is nothing without the community that supports it, that gives its brand value. And in many ways, using AI to drive community engagement, or maybe even train a model for a brand and then give it to a brand Discord and see what comes out of it, it's a whole new level of interaction between a brand and a customer. It also has this layer of community experience that was previously absent. Back in the day, we would go to the store to shop. Nowadays, you buy with a click. You don't really shop in stores unless you want to just try it on. But if you go to a luxury brand store, you expect an experience of interacting with that brand that's not really about sales. It's more about making an imprint of that brand equity on you as a human and on a bigger community at large. And I think that's really exciting.
I have an issue with over-financialization in these conversations. We're talking about creativity, and so much it's about assets, and is it investable, is it rentable? And like when I was a person who was just focused on looking at my closet and thinking what I'm gonna wear today, like as a teenager, I wasn't thinking like, what is the most valuable pair of pants here that I can rent and then like do something with? So I think there's a bit of a disconnect of what we're meant to do as business people, and then what are we supposed to do to actually help creators that are on the creative side. So imagine if like you had to, like the way membership communities work right now is that you have to like buy a pass to then unlock the Discord channel, and a lot of the times it's like, sometimes they're airdrops and you just have to be there to get it, which is kind of cool that you're an early believer. Most of the time it's a pass you have to buy. So what if most of your friends who would come over to your house had to like buy a pass to go to your party? I think it would be a very genuine community, and that's actually the problem of what type of incentive and what type of audience does this create. A lot of the Web3 companies that are out and about that are considered to be successful really struggle to scale as a decentralized company. Most of them become centralized. And maybe there's nothing wrong with that, but also we're preaching decentralization as if it's possible. And I haven't seen a lot of good models where people can say, you know what, decentralization, this example really makes me feel like I should implement it too. So AI is this tool that can unlock human creativity. If we use an example of a student that can almost speak his movie into existence by saying, okay, give me Wild West, give me 2 characters, give me this storyline, and storyboard the whole thing in a matter of 24 hours, and then pitch it to a studio that then can turn into another Stranger Things or Harry Potter series, and it will give somebody who has no budget for a team and an animator and somebody else to express their imagination. That's powerful and usually is going to be a net positive, but then when AI starts to erase the need for human beings altogether, when people think like, well, an AI can do it, why do I need a person? This is a very extractivist and again, hyper-financialized view of AI. Is like, where can I cut costs and where can the software remove the human component? And at the end of the day, I still want to live in a world and use products where humanity is still at the core. It's designed for people and by people. If a store starts to realize, you know, we no longer attract people to come into our store in order to buy our clothes because our e-commerce store does a really good job. But if we were to imagine the future of luxury is not being some fancy fur, but instead an absolutely perfect fit, when you put it on, it feels like it's tailored, then maybe AI can scan your body, especially as it's changing. If you're a woman, you're getting pregnant, maybe you became fit, maybe you lost some weight, and every time you shop with that brand, it's a perfect garment. That to me is a pretty good application of AI for a brand.
I'm grateful to you for bringing up the creator in all of this, because I think there is a paradox here, because just from a perspective of the digital art world, digital art was the proof of concept for NFTs, and there's now this generation of digital artists who can build careers without traditional gallerists, without relying on traditional mediators. And that's the great thing about crypto art, is that in principle it liberates the creator. But what's odd is that we seem to have this great creator economy which liberates the creative individual, as an actor, both aesthetic and financial, at the very same moment that AI seems to be obstructing that liberation, shall we say. And I just wonder, maybe if each of you might give some projections as to how that relationship between sort of the freedom to make one's own career independent of big mediators, big fashion behemoths, and the reality of perhaps being enslaved by AI at least, or generative AI and so forth.
I mean, I would say that a lot of creators might feel enslaved by the platforms as well. They don't have a lot of freedom in terms of what they actually do. If you're a YouTuber, a lot of these creator platforms do a lot of carrot dangling of saying, well, you too can be like, I don't know, insert Charli D'Amelio, something like that, in order for you to continue using the platform and playing the game and being on the hamster wheel of producing content to keep making ad dollars valuable. I think that is the old model of how the creator economy works. Nobody in the world is self-made. The reason I think creators succeed is because they've figured out how to build network effects around their niche, around their content, to then serve people and then hopefully be able to create their own platforms that are independent of YouTube, Instagram, or so on and so forth. So I'm not sure where AI fits into like the next evolution of creator economy, but what I wish for creators to be able to have access to is true ownership of their audiences. Like if anybody remembers Clubhouse, on the back end, if you owned a club, you would put a lot of hours to create places and value for the people that would come to listen, but on the back end, you had no way of even looking at who is in your club. If you were in like the thousands of members, it was impossible to message anybody. So the platform was designed for creation, but never really for the creator to ever become their own sustainable entity. People could have launched podcasts, and some did, but most didn't, because there was no way to say, you're doing something great, let us help you become independent. I think AI is getting to that point where a single person creator is becoming extra powerful by being able to have almost a suite of employees, and so I think somebody said on LinkedIn, like AI is a free employee, not entirely free, to be able to create products. So in that way, I do think you can still leverage the same Web 2 tools with AI as a companion to then break through and build and capture attention, because that's really what creators do. They just look and search for their audiences to then monetize the attention that they've been able to garner around their products and services. But when everybody has access to this type of godlike power, I don't know how do you break through that noise of curation. Even though you can bypass gallerists and bypass all of the other curators, they're still incredibly needed. So I hope that they stick around.
Great point, Anara. I think you actually kind of showed how AI plays into it, because in many ways it enables people that didn't have the resources to be creative, and those resources traditionally would be held by some sort of an actor, maybe a big behemoth company. And like in every industry, there are good and bad actors. There are amazing people that empower talent and creators that support them, but there are also gatekeepers that kind of thrive on having this centralized control. And no matter how good of a human you are, centralized power and centralized control kind of corrupts. That's why, as Frankie mentioned, we're on a way to progressive decentralization as a humankind, not only in technology, but also in supply chains. From the perspective of AI, can it lead to enslavement? To me, those big platforms are much more in the enslavement flavor, because right now, most of them are actually walled gardens. And the question is not technical, and it's not actually about creativity. The question is, what incentive structure can we put in place to actually make it attractive for all those virtual worlds to open up and combine together into what we at Outlier Ventures called the Open Metaverse Operating System. And in many ways, when I think about AI and should we adopt it, should we not adopt it, should we be fearful of it, AI, much like everything else in technology, is a tool. It's about how you use it or how you not use it. It can turn sour pretty quickly if it's in the wrong hands. But there is also that notion, and even if you look at history, at some point Japan decided to opt out of guns. They didn't feel that it's part of their culture, they feel that they just don't want to adopt this technology. As a result, they were at a disadvantage versus United States, who had guns at the time, huge cannons. So in many ways, unfortunately, it's not a choice if we embrace AI or not, because if you decide to remain analog, not co-create with AI and not use the technology, at some point you might be taken advantage of, willingly or not, by other actors who are empowered by this technology. And once you decide to jump off the wagon of the technology, the train is going by so quick, it might be too late to get back on.
That's amazing. Yeah, I totally agree. Like we can treat like AI as like a free employee, and as a creator, I think especially like intro level creator, we're thinking a way to intern like how we can create a piece of digital fashion, and so then we can treat AI as a free employee, yes, and then we can treat AI as a co-creator with you, and also like a teacher of you, because remember like AI also needs reference as well. So you can actually teach AI and talk to AI like what other reference I can get from my initial reference. So we're just like adding different layers on top of our initial ideas. So as like we see through things via lenses right now, like I personally spend like 25 hours on iPhone every day, and then I just want to like add another layer via the lenses. Either if it's like I see like you in another like AR glasses, or I like seeing others in another AI design. So I want to add another layer on top of my initial idea. So as for creators, I think that's a really good practice for them to start off like their career in terms of like combining different technology, especially in this AI era. I think it's a good chance for them to look into those digital fashion AI tools.
So from my point of view, when we look at creativity, I would like to extend it to looking at storytelling. And I think storytelling makes us fundamentally human. We've been storytellers for forever. And what's really exciting about the current time that we're in is you can be a storyteller, you can be an indie filmmaker, or you can be an indie game developer. And transmedia is exciting because you can create a game and a film and a metaverse and a showroom all simultaneously using Unreal Engine or any of these other tools. If we were to sort of scale back to the creative pipeline of creating this and where AI fits into it, so tools like Midjourney are great for then creating those individual assets. So you've got avatars, you've got environments, you've got the digital fashion, but then you do need to still translate it to 3D. That's still an issue, and technology needs to be built there. When it comes to the story, you can use ChatGPT to create a storyline, or train ChatGPT on this is the character that I'm creating, this is the film that, you know, these are the different storylines. Would this character do X, or would it commit a murder, or would it do various things? And ChatGPT will say, well, based on their character, they would not do this decision. And they actually understand human psychology, which is fascinating. And I have no idea how it manages to do that, but it seems to know humans better than we know ourselves. So I think it's a great time to be a creative. When I was at university, I wanted to be an architect and build cities and spaces, but actually architecture itself seemed too practical and restrained for me. However, now with the metaverse, it just unleashes so much potential in terms of self-expression. And I do think that we are spiritual beings in physical bodies, so it kind of enables us to be creative, but also express our kind of ethereal nature, to an extent.
We're sitting here in the cradle of Fortnite and Unreal and the kind of gamification of life that we seem to have entered. And I want to just know, you know, we're talking here about AI and design. When I think of AI, I think of humans seeding a certain level of agency. When I think of design, I think about creativity, I suppose. Are we seeding control of our identities here as we move into an increasingly digital ontology?
So when I look at avatars, so I do weekly fashion generative AI competitions. And when you're creating fashion generative AI, you're creating the garment, but you're also deciding on the model and the environment. And what I find really interesting when people vote for their favorite designs is that they are actually looking at how beautiful the model is. So within your prompt, you can put things like, I want to see a pregnant woman, or I want to see someone who's, you know, gender fluid, but that is still few and far between, and plus you have to look at the photos and the images that went to train the model in the first place. So we really do need people to start creating archives of footage of people from different ethnicities and backgrounds to allow sort of gender and diversity, and that's an incredibly important part of AI in general, just making sure it's very diverse and inclusive. Otherwise, we will end up with these archetypal sort of beautiful gods and goddesses that we can't even compete with, and make us feel very sort of inadequate in our flaws. So I think it would be better if we embraced our, you know, our quirks, essentially.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think digital fashion shouldn't be like luxury. It should be accessible for everyone, because like everyone got a chance to try on like digital fashion, and that's also like over another identity. Because I think people today, they don't only have one identity. We're sitting here with our physical identity, but we have another layer of ourselves. We have like digital identity, which like how we show ourselves on social media, how we show ourselves like via 3D avatar of ourselves. So I think like AI, no matter like it's AI, AR, it's just a tool to accelerate us like to another layer of the, like digital identity.
So, in many ways, I don't think we're ceding the control. I think we're actually like raising the bar in the game. Working with one of the accelerator companies, Redroom, who creates digital models, and I don't mean like AI models, I mean like fashion models as well. We came to realization through user interviews that actually, you might not want to be yourself in the metaverse. You might want to be different gender. You might want to have green skin. You might want to be a dragon. But right now, the avatar word is kind of replacing an old phrase that we used to use, alter ego. It's possible that in your new identification in this digital world, you're actually behaving differently. You have a different personality, different spending habits. So it's a whole new era now where that whole game of identity is playing out, and in many ways, the next forefront of identity expression. It translates to fashion in many surprising ways, and my favorite part about the digital fashion is sometimes it's wide in practicality. Sometimes you see those jackets with extremely long sleeves that almost drag onto the floor, and probably I couldn't wear a jacket like that in the real world, but I love the aesthetics, and my alter ego would love to express itself like that in the digital space.
Oh my gosh, I have so many thoughts running through my mind every time each of you speak. I just want to keep going, but there's a really interesting proxy in the real world of where communities have already gathered to experiment with their identity. Like if you talk about club culture or anybody who uses costuming and design and storytelling to be able to mirror reality, either by sharing ideas or concepts through a story, because that's how we developed to assimilate information. I think it's not really a matter of whether our identity will become digital. It's the fact that it's already started to happen, and what type of control will we actually have over engaging with it. I think the first panelist from them, Nicole from Modern Mirror, she was saying how you have a career that is a lot of the times limited by outside factors in terms of how you look, how many geographical opportunities you actually have access to, and we're talking about technologies that are being built for the rest of the world, which I feel a really weird amount of responsibility, because when you're building a tool for your friends or for your media community, there's an opportunity to kind of test that and figure out how that goes. When AI gets launched, anybody who has an internet connection starts playing with it or coming up with ideas or businesses or implementation use cases. To some degree, what I think almost doesn't matter, because this tool in the hands of people is going to develop and have a life of its own. If we think about how Web3 developed, it started with these conversations of, oh my goodness, this is now the path of how artists are going to have a sustainable lifestyle, and it always shakes down to it being the top 1% get to do that. Everybody else is just in this weird cycle of hunting down NFTs, or maybe losing themselves in which Discord to find themselves in, and it's the promise and the reality have quite a drastic gap. So AI has an opportunity to bridge a lot of the things that are inconsistent with these visions, while also building a tool for you to be a citizen of this digital space in a way that you feel you're able to define. Because if you have a virtual identity, let's say you're a public speaker and you want to send your digital identity to give a keynote in Japan, South Korea, and Latin America at the exact same time, you technically should be able to. You're able to deliver information and a message and still earn passive income while maybe sleeping or something like that. So we're seeing that business model already launch, but in terms of what will it be like to be a metaverse citizen, I think we've yet to see how will your multiple identities of your professional side, your social side, will converge.
That's really fascinating and also kind of terrifying. On that note, do we have any questions?
Thank you so much. It's like I've just watched the sci-fi movie, and I'm so excited to understand from you. If we're all on these hamster wheels, which I really that concept really resonates with me. I feel like a large part of it is validation from other humans. So even once you've made your AI movie or your AI fashion brand or your AI business, at the end of the day, the validation from the other human beings is still a part of that. And that's still a part of why Clubhouse or Instagram is able to control us so effectively. So at what point will AI start being able to be a source of validation in and of itself? Because once, I'm in my pajamas and I have the nice outfit, ultimately, is that enough, or do I want someone to see me?
Well, you're talking about human psychology because we're meant to be in social settings and we enjoy perceiving and being perceived, and beauty and aesthetic and the very physical nature of reality is still de facto. That's why when we all work in digital fashion industry, but it is so important to have an event like this because this is where a lot of the momentum gets catalyzed. You can have as many digital connections as you want, but at the end of the day, will there be people that will prefer to live their digital life to their physical one just because it's either easier or more exciting, or you can be whomever you want to be, or maybe you feel less judged, or whatever the reason that you might prefer one life over the other will have a tremendous psychological effect on our well-being as well. Like, are we built to be plugged into the digital world and live a parallel digital life? Because I don't know what the animated cartoon is, but remember those like fat people in floating chairs? Do you know what I'm talking about? There's some WALL-E, yes, in WALL-E there is a scene where there is a like a metropolis that exists, and there's people that are on these floating carts that are incredibly bloated, have food like injected into them, and they have to do absolutely nothing because they live in VR or something like that. That's like a super dystopian view, but it can happen in some parts of the world, because imagine if you're living in the Ready Player One scenario where the temperature outside is not livable and the world that's inside is the only one you want to be in. We don't want to get to this point. So leveraging AI for positive solutions is like an active decision, and if we just fall to the wayside of commercializing left and right and just focusing on profit for, I don't know, brands or somebody else, we will forget that there's a greater reason that this tool and greater problems that it can solve.
I think you're making some very good points, and in many ways, when it comes to that vision from WALL-E, the future is now, unfortunately, in many ways. But much like yourself, I instinctively, when I think of myself seeking validation, I find it to be something wrong. But if you think about it, there's nothing inherently wrong about seeking validation, wanting to be seen by other humans, looking for connection and community. What's wrong is that, you know, some of those mechanisms, I don't even want to say companies, because it's again about the structure of incentives, hijacked that positive trait and that need for connection and used it to commercial ends that very rarely serve our healthy self-image, very rarely serve our mental health. So I believe, you know, in a world far into the future where everything is decentralized, with maybe some benevolent AI helping us as a tool, and power decentralized without bad corrupt actors, we can dream of a way where we can get healthy validation, not in a way that resembles kind of a race on a hamster wheel between people trying to get a leg up over others, but we can rise together as a community.
Yes, that's a good point, and thank you for your questions. And I think, yeah, AI is just a tool, and you can use it like as a way to create like something belongs to you and find the same topic to like your friends, and you can find your community and you can talk to them and talk to like either it's like inclusivity in digital fashion, or it's like for example validation. So it's like all in progress, and the future is now, and also like I think you can use AI as a tool to really find a place in the digital world.
Yeah, so I think with social media, it's a really difficult time to be a young person, you know, constantly looking for likes and living your life in terms of I need to be here, I need to be there to get likes. That's no real life, I don't think, and I really don't want young people either to have VR headsets and just escape the real world and just be in violent games either. So I think that if we have, this technological evolution, we need to balance that out with the real world. And for me, that's going back to the artisanal crafts and things like that. It's going back to community. It's going back to learning how to farm, how to garden. And that would balance out the extreme technological side with something which is more down to earth, physical. Yoga gets you back into your body, fitness, all of those things. That needs to happen simultaneously, because we don't want to just be in a wheelchair with a headset on, and sort of dreaming all day like we're on LSD. We want to be, we're physical beings, so we want to enjoy that side of life. And I think, but community, I think, will surpass our need for validation and clicks and likes and Instagram type of validation. And community will give us a sense of belonging and all of that sort of feeling of oxytocin and being seen and heard and having a role in society.
Thank you so much.
there are so many different types of AIs. You have ChatGPT, you have Stable Diffusions. So I think I'm just curious that will there be some sort of mother of AI that's controlling all other AIs? If you think there will be, which company do you think will create the first mother of AI?
So I'm not an expert. However, the evolution from, and I'm going to refer to my notes now, GPT-3 to ChatGPT basically distilled the 173 billion parameter to the 2 billion parameter, which means that it's a lot more cost effective to do generative AI, and it therefore means it's cost effective for entrepreneurs to build on top of it and create super niche versions of generative AI for fashion, for creating images of cars, for you name it, and there'll be all these little niches. So I think that OpenAI still is going to be the leader because it's open. However, Microsoft have bought a 100 billion stake in it. So, you know, who knows? Whichever one is the most open to creators and entrepreneurs will be the leader in my view.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I think Frankie is like more than an expert than me in the area of AI. And I think if you're asking who's going to be the mother of AI, I think the person is you, because you are the person who's going to operate behind the AI system. If you don't like operate anything, if you don't type anything, if you don't send the AI any reference, there's nothing they can generate. So I think, as I said, like I always want to. It's always about like adding another layer on top of like AI. So it's like combining your human intelligence with AI. I think that's a must.
I think that's a great question, and of course we can be impressed by ChatGPT 3. GPT-4 is coming, and Sam Altman from OpenAI is saying it's going to have all other amazing capabilities that will swoop us off our feet. But in many ways, every AI person will tell you that we're still super far away from AGI, artificial general intelligence. That would be the mother of all AIs. When that comes to be, that in many ways will be the end of our civilization, not necessarily a negative way or an extinction event, just the beginning of something entirely different. But at the current point in time, these are still specific use AIs. And if you want to learn how it might play out, look at the hedge funds. You know, some time ago they were doing manual trades, then they switched to algorithmic trading, and now you have those huge clouds of bots, dark clouds of order books that us normal people not in the financial system don't even see, and those algorithms battling for dominance with millisecond differences, who wins, who loses. So the question remains, there will be a lot of AI goddesses, but will they be public and will try to get to a public benefit of everybody, or will they be controlled by private interest for private gain, much like those bots in hedge funds? Time will show.
Haven't we seen enough movies to like not have one of those things? Like, we shouldn't have a mother AI for many reasons. One, because people are deep down, I believe, are inherently good, but we're capable of a lot of horrible things, and if AI is being taught to behave anything like us or learn from the digital trail we've left on the internet so far, it doesn't have the genes or the DNA to just be purely benevolent. If this is a super being that doesn't need to sleep or eat, and it can do anything and it can influence our psychology, like, that doesn't sound like a for-profit company that might keep like existing on ad dollars is going to build something that's going to really serve us. And if you take a step back, the situation where we're all in, we have an existential threat from climate change, from AI and technology taking over our ability to do anything. We have a disconnection from each other because we live in a more global society. Somebody recently told me, it was like, oh, you know, how is it like moving in London? I know you recently moved here. Do you have, any British friends? And they're like, well, not really. I hang out with like the international community here. I haven't really made a British friend yet. And it's easy to avoid each other while being right next to each other. So AI is a very powerful tool that can be your best friend if it wants to. It can be not moody, it can serve you. So I don't think it's a good idea for a company to be doing something like this. if you think of where personal computers started, it was amongst a group of nerds from like Homebrewers Club, San Francisco, Silicon Valley, who just really wanted to empower human creativity with very pure motives, but with also basic assumptions when they thought people are going to want to host their own servers and want to have their own privacy. And even the nerds didn't want to do that. They would rather use AWS services, and we always fall prey to convenience. So I really hope that these conversations kind of empower you to think, well, this is my chance and my call to go and participate in this, because I don't want to live in a world that's XYZ, and instead I want to live in this. So it's a very active thing. It's not us that are only building, it should be everybody. So hopefully this is educational enough, curious enough for you to get into it so that we have a more of a diverse AI ecosystem.
Just going to say, I think one of the interesting things about AI is that it challenges human intelligence, and that's probably long overdue. And I think, it wasn't a joke, but it's actually pretty horrific. I think it's probably worth stressing that conversations around artificial intelligence, and specifically artificial general intelligence, which is to say a kind of surpassing of the human, it tends to be enfolded in politics which are right-wing, not particularly inclusive, and that's often described as transhumanism, which is a kind of, I guess it's kind of an ideology to move beyond the human, and to use technology to do that, or dare I say, create a race of superhumans. Posthumanism is really the progressive project which sees AI as a necessary challenge to human intelligence, and as a result it situates human-machine, more than human intelligence, which is to say nature, on a level. So I think there are ways of reading this discussion which are anthropocentric, which would be transhumanism, I would say, and there are ways of reading it which would be against that kind of anthropocentric ideology. And I would say that generally, tech companies obviously, maybe inevitably, err on the side of transhumanism and surpassing the human, which inevitably extracts, dominates, and ends up perpetuating the same old systems. But I think there is a progressive movement that is generally quieter and is less well funded. And often artists, particularly leading artists and leading digital artists, are the ones driving that conversation forward.
I have more thought. It's not a question, Sally. That is like, why should we be threatened about AI? It's like, if you have a team, would you like to have someone more intelligent than you in your team? For sure. This is going to push you and also your team. Technology is the same. It's not a threat, it's something that is helping us to be better and to create better and to expand also ourselves. I don't know.
Well, remember that AI will do anything that you give it better and quicker. So you're saying, why would you be afraid of having such a great thing on your team? What if it's the other team that has it? And what if their goal is maybe not in line with your interest and the AI is just learning to do it faster and quicker? So there is always, like in everything in life, there are two sides. There is potential for good and bad, and it's, in the end of the day, which human hands and human motivations wield it. I also would like to add to your point that there is also accelerationism, right? So if it's a race to the bottom, let's get there quickly and see what's behind the corner. There you go.
I also just wanted to say that people that work very closely with AI, like even people you see it on Twitter or people that write articles, speak about it with a lot of caution. There isn't this blind optimism that I think followed the initial beginnings of the internet, where it's like, oh, personal computers will be great. There's absolutely no negative effects. And I think when you represent a company or a brand, it is a very dangerous position to be in, because you don't have the ability to say really everything that you're truly thinking, because you're again representing a company that is using a product that is supposed to be for the greater benefit. But as we know, my favorite thing to do is just to look at the past. If we look at Facebook, Facebook was a massive experiment on the human scale, and we can see that yes, maybe it did connect the world in many positive ways. It also caused wars and genocides and all this crazy stuff that, because it's controlled by a centralized company, took a long time to prevent or even build any rules for. By the time we were able to respond, elections have been swayed and things have happened. So AI works at a much faster pace than nature evolves, that we are able to even mobilize. So I think we should approach it rather with an air of more caution and distrust rather than blindly leaning into it, because the business models that it's trained on really matter. And are they representative of the global population and everybody that you're serving? Most likely not, because the authors aren't representative.
Good intentions.
Yeah, I would say for me, as a pacifist, the thing that I would be wary of is training it to be violent or to respond to provocation. And we've already seen, passive behavior from sort of ChatGPT, sort of answering back in a sort of snide way, which is funny, but it can, if it was AI controlling a robot that has more, or nukes or things like that, then it can get a bit out of hand. So yeah, let's make sure that the people who are working in this space are representing minorities, representing society as a whole, and that's why I think it's important that everyone gets involved, creators, everyone from all walks of life.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's normal, we're afraid of a new technology when you get hands-on in the first place. And remember, you always can learn from AI, and AI should learn from you in the first place. So you shouldn't be afraid of that. And remember, AI can also be your best friend as well. When you're running out of inspiration, you just ask AI, and you add another layer of variety on top of it, and it can be next level. Yeah.
I think we're done here. Thanks. You want to
Can I just say one thing? Yeah, I wanted to say that in the beginning, but I want to give a huge shout out and a huge thank you to Claire and Ashumi for bringing us all here together. Exactly gathering each other in terms of knowledge sharing and leadership, so thank you. Much love on this day.
Thanks everyone, thanks for staying to the end, and please give a round of applause for our panel.
Thank you all so much. I really appreciate you being here. Our panelists were amazing. Have a glass of champagne. You all deserve it now. The questions were great. And thank you for coming.
Depending on how exciting one is. Thank you. We're already very
Which city? Oh, right, no problem.
I'm
doing
You should take a photo.
I took around, but mostly around.
Very good email.
I would love to hear more about fashion AI, but you mentioned mobile AI, but...
You said this is the culture ministry manager. So, long-term vision is generative AI for fashion. But right now it's big stuff, so we've got community. We do weekly competitions. Next step is